We ain't even have the nice stinger transition. We're not even doing any of that. We're running late. And I'm sorry I'm additional 20 minutes late. I wasn't supposed to be. I needed to find out where my money was from the IRS. And this isn't supposed to be the talking point of today's show. The talking point of today's show is supposed to be directly what the fuck is President Donald Trump doing negotiating with terrorists. But I feel it my civic duty to point out something about the IRS, which is just absurd. So I got a message from the IRS, and that message was, you have a credit of $1,025 that you didn't claim on your Form 1120. What would you like to do with it? So I went, I can't show you my Form 1120, obviously, because it has my banking information on it. But what I did was, I went and I repulled my Form 1120. Trust me, I'm looking at it right now. And I most certainly did, in fact, indicate I wanted all the money refunded. I gave them my routing number. I gave them my account number. And so I was confused as shit. Got my state income tax for the company. Didn't get the federal. And called them, and I want to show you a Form 1120. I'll show you a blank one, so you don't think I'm lying about this, because people think I lie about stuff for clout. I don't give a shit about clout. Right here, enter the amount from line 36 you want credited or refunded. This is line 37B. So line 37B is how much I want refunded. Routing number, account number, type, checking or savings. Called the IRS. The lady says, I have no idea why they put that field on the form. Corporate accounts can't get electronic refunds. Form 1120 is only for U.S. corporation income tax returns. It's not like we're using the same form for multiple people, like LLCs, DBAs, sole proprietorships, partnerships, S-corps. S-corps can use this form if they're... LLCs, S-corps, and C-corps can all choose to use this form if they choose certain taxation. I'd have no idea why you would want to have an LLC taxed as a C-corp. Just form a fucking C-corp. Get all the rights and privileges. But this is, like, right here, like, what the fuck? Number one, why can our IRS not pay corporations electronically? Number two, why would you ever assume on this letter, if I asked you for a refund, why would you ever assume that I wouldn't want my money? Like, you'll notice that up here, there's no phone number. Down here, there's no phone number. Are we really fucking running around as a country that doesn't have the ability to make phone calls to businesses? Wiring funds to a bank is something they do all day long. It's some... No. The lady on the phone told me it's not something they do. It's something that I do. Because when I go into EFTPS, which is the Electronic Funds Transfer Pay System, I have to do an ACH. I don't have a choice. I must pay my quarterly estimated taxes with an electronic route. So then, not that I blame the lady, and I didn't even say this to the lady, I normally would have, but she was a very wonderful lady. She's a very amazing person. You're gonna get your payment in 4 to 6 weeks from today. Hey lady, on Monday I have to write you guys a check. Luckily, I run a cash business. I run a cash-based business. If I didn't run a cash-based business and I was counting on that payment to make my next payment, I'd be fucked. This is a place where the IRS, like, Donnie Boy needs to just call me and be like, hey, Jalan, I need an Elon Musk who understands the government. Come in and fix this. I'll be like, hold on, give me my badge. I'm going right to the IRS. I'm fixing this shit. I don't understand how the government has your money all year long, and then they tell people that need their money to live. You'll get it in, like, moms that I know. They're like, yeah, you'll get your money in 4 to 6 weeks. 2 to 4 weeks. Hey, bitches, rent's due today. You've had my money tied up. This whole country has lost its fucking mind. The whole damn country has a screw loose. I cannot even fathom how we're gonna survive. You still have people every single day. Yeah, they collected interest on it. That's okay. Thank you for saying that so that I can bring up another fact about American society that I hate. All Americans need to be looking at Europe and saying, we want their consumer protection laws. A company says, we'll give you a refund in 7 to 10 business days. Hold up. Hold on. When I bought the damn thing, you'd already run my credit card before I hung up the phone with you. You didn't even wait till the end of the fucking day to do batch processing. You took the money off of my credit card the moment well, you didn't take it off my credit card. You staked a claim to my credit card the moment I talked to you. It processed within 2 days. Why does it take you 7 to 10 business days to issue a refund? And it's real simple. The average daily balance. Whoever wants to keep their average daily balance as high as they can, so their 1/365th of interest they get is through the roof. I made a joke once that actually got me investigated. It was a stupid off-the-cuff joke. I've told you guys when I was doing what I did for the military, at one point I had in excess of a $4 billion budget because fuel's expensive. And I made a joke once and I said, man, I wish that I could just route this money through my bank account every day. I don't want to keep it. I just want to pass it through my bank account because I'd be a millionaire just on the interest. And somebody reported me for that. First of all, grow the fuck up. Why would you report somebody for that? Second of all, that's how interest works. It's the average daily balance of your account. That's what the businesses do. That's what the IRS does. What this form says, which you'll love, you must respond within 30 days of this notice. If we don't hear from you and there's still a credit on the account after we make any requested changes, you should receive a refund of the overpayment within 8 to 12 weeks. So you want to spend 30 days and then an additional 8 to 12 weeks. But if I call, I can get it in 4 to 6 weeks. Does anybody else believe that we're just being fucked with by our government? I wonder if you take everything that is better over all the world, if it would work well altogether. That, my friend, is an amazing thought. And the answer is no, it wouldn't. And here's why. The average American believes that, and I can't believe I have to state this, but the average American believes that we are contributing $800 billion a year to NATO. We're fucking not. What we're contributing is $800 billion a year to our own military. Now, I know this is rough for people to hear. Europeans don't like it when I say this because they're like, you don't understand. Yes, I do. Americans don't like it when I say this because they say you're simping for European countries. I'm like, no, I'm not. The reason why European countries are able to have free healthcare and free education and a higher quality of life, not more spending power. Americans have more consumer buying power, but Europeans have more of their life necessities taken care of, is because they don't have to spend 25 to 50 cents out of every tax dollar building their militaries. And a lot of Europeans try to hit me back with, well, we're contributing what NATO says we have to contribute. And my response to that is, Russia and Belarus don't give a shit what your NATO obligations are. They give a shit how far can they penetrate into your country. And when you say it that way, it makes everybody pucker up their asshole a little bit and really think about what they're saying. I'm very happy that you countries that are within striking distance of Russia only want to spend 4 to 5% of your GDP on your military. Your 4 to 5%, unless you're Poland, the little European Texas, you are literally a thump for Russia. Now, in the last 5 years, we've seen Russia's not as dangerous as we thought they were. Russia went from being the second most powerful military in the world to the second most powerful military in the Ukraine. So I guess the joke is on America, because we've been burning through hundreds of billions of dollars developing Raptors and KC-46s and long-range stealth bombers, the new long-range stealth bomber, and the new F-47, the 6th-gen fighter. I don't know why. Because Russia's not a threat, but Iran is. The world's most powerful military ever can't subjugate. No, the F-47 is for global. The F-47 is there's no, we don't do theater specific weapon systems anymore. We learned our lesson with the Apache. We don't chop up like this is for that or this is for that. The F-47 isn't for the Pacific theater anyway, because China, there is no Pacific theater. There's only one aggressor. Well, there's technically two, but North Korea. It has more range than the F-22. Right. It has more range than the F-22. Because the F-22 has some design limfacs. The lesson with the Apache was that they weren't designed to operate in desert environments. The Apache was a response to Korea and Vietnam. And then we tried to use it in the first Gulf War, and it works fine. But, kind of. But the sand gets into the SEALs and shreds the shit out of the SEALs. So, the Apache is a great weapon system. The whole concept of the Apache, it's because it's not just the helicopter. It's the Apache, it's Little Eye, and it's the ground tank that carries an additional 8 Hellfire missiles. The Apache is an amazing weapon system for a jungle environment. It's not an amazing weapon system for a desert environment. The U.S. has obviously destroyed most of Iran's military capability, but I am to some extent surprised that the war is not already properly over. You brought 2 aircraft carriers. We brought 3 aircraft carriers. We brought 3. We had 2 and a third one's on its way because we have to rotate one out. But when the 3rd carrier strike group gets there, it'll be fully armed and not working on rearmament. We've burned through at least 850 Tomahawk missiles. But that's another thing that I don't understand about Donald Trump. Like, and granted, I understand that they're not making everything public. But when they said we've hit 11,000 targets, all the Americans are like, yay, we've hit 11,000 targets. Then I start peeling back that onion a little bit. And as I peel back that onion, I said to myself, How the hell did we hit 11,000 targets this quickly? That gets to my next question. Does Iran even have 11,000 meaningful strategic targets to hit? Normally, the military doesn't drop just one bomb on a target. We drop multiple bombs on a target to make sure we destroy the target. 11,000 targets. Take off 850 of them, because that's how many Tomahawks we hit. Are they counting bombs or targets? That's the first question. Are you counting bombs? Have you dropped 11,000 pieces of ordnance? Or have you eliminated 11,000 strategic targets? No, we've hit 11,000. The number is 11,000 targets. We've hit 11,000 targets. How? How? Take off 850 out of 11,000, because that's what we've hit with Tomahawks. That's a fuck ton of sorties. That is a metric fuck ton of now, I'm not saying the US doesn't have the capability to hit that many targets, but they were talking about hitting 10,000 targets in the second week. Yeah, are they talking about, like, when they say we hit 11,000 targets, are they talking about because you killed the Ayatollah and his grandson and his grandson's wife, or his son's wife? An aircraft, no, I never gave the capability of what an aircraft carrier can hit. I would never give out a fixed number, because I would give a range. I would say it could hit between this many and this many. I talk about when people give me a fact and like, oh, well, a carrier strike group has 450, a carrier strike group has 450 Tomahawks. I would say, while that is approximately correct, you're not going to hit 450 targets. So you have 450 Tomahawks in your carrier strike group, depending on the configuration, which vessels, which era, which generation. Well, what you're going to have then is you're going to have the ability to hit 315 strategic targets. If you have 450 Tomahawks, that carrier strike group can hit about 315 strategic targets. Now, somebody would ask, well, why can they only hit 315 if they have 450? Because you reserve for as targets of opportunity appear and as new threats to your air campaign appear. You don't waste the Tomahawk taking out something that a fighter can take out, a bomber can take out. You save the Tomahawk in case they get another air defense radar operational. Well, you can hit that with the Tomahawk, reduce the threat again. Now your fighters can operate with impunity. Your bombers can operate with impunity. Except, as we've seen in the last 2 weeks, Donald Trump, the people he has put in control of the military, hit targets with B-52s. Grandpa Buff. Glad to see him. He's a welcome addition to any strategic package. Except, if F-35s are getting lit up, and F-15s are getting shot down, and A-10s are getting shot down, what the fuck is Buff even doing in the air? Why is Buff there? Buff ain't out running a missile. Buff is there to fucking bomb the shit out of stuff. Grandpa Buff can also launch cruise missiles now. He's going to be there when the maiden voyage of the first Starship Enterprise. But I don't think Donald Trump knows what the fuck he's doing. I don't think Donald Trump... Do they count the missiles, rockets, drones, they shouldn't be counting shoot downs as strategic targets. Those should be counted as intercepts. Generally, you don't count hitting a target, but that's the only way I can see them getting to that number. I don't think Trump has ever known what the fuck he was doing. Yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't disagree. Donald Trump, he's got an agenda, He has an agenda. But we've got a really, really big problem now in this country. And that is, our country doesn't know right from wrong. Our leadership doesn't know right from wrong. And I'm not saying this, you guys don't know that I don't say things. If what I'm saying sounds sensational, I'm not saying it to be sensational. I don't have enough viewers yet. I'm trying to grow my brand, but I don't have enough viewers yet to be baselessly sensational. But we're close. We're close to the revolution. And I'm going to show you a video, and you'll understand why, after seeing this particular video, why I believe we're close.
America hasn't won a war since World War II.
To the revolution. I think we're right there.
That fire in the Kimberly-Clark warehouse was not violent. And I don't want to see the mainstream media paint this narrative that this was a violent act by a violent man with violent thoughts. No. That was an act of desperation against a violent system. What's violent is his family not having enough to eat. What's violent is his rent being more expensive than he can afford. What's violent is that he doesn't have affordability in his health care. He doesn't have universal health care. He doesn't have fucking health care, probably, or mental care, or dental care, or vision care, because apparently my body part is separated. My mind and my eyes and all that's not connected to the shell that is me. No, that was not violence. That was protest.
Number one, we have a guy that sets fire to a $200 million warehouse. And number two, we literally have dumb fucks saying that wasn't violence. The use of arson is a crime. That was an act of retribution. I'm not saying that you can't make a justification for it being justifiable. I don't think you'll win, but you can make any argument you want. But the fuck is wrong with you?
He destroyed product. He did not hurt a person. He did not. Nobody, from my knowledge, got hurt.
The fucking firefighters, every time a firefighter has to go into a fire, they are rolling the fucking dice. Like, my son-in-law was a firefighter. He's gone back to being a lineman. Every time a firefighter has to go into a fire, they're rolling the fucking dice. Oh shit, she went from it's not violence because there was no targeted victim other than property. That could potentially be argued. I don't think that this is going to hold up, but it could be argued. However, when she foot on asshat, right. And so if he burned your house down and your property, it's cool as long as you weren't there. No, but my cats are going to be in my property, and I guarantee you fuck with my animals, I will shoot you dead.
All were evacuated, all 20 of them, for the $1 million warehouse, by the way. They were all evacuated.
$1 million warehouse? You stupid fucking puta. That fucking warehouse was $200 million. All that asshole did was make it so that everybody that was employed there is terminated. Well, they'll get severance. No, they won't, because there is an exclusionary clause in severance that says unanticipated event. Your Honor, we don't have the money to pay severance. Well, why not? You're a multi-million-dollar company. Because some asshole burned down our warehouse and cost us $200 million. We didn't get rid of these employees because we wanted to get rid of them. Yeah, the warehouse, a 1.2 million square foot warehouse isn't $1 million to build.
The only damage was to profit. And that is exactly the way a protest should be happening.
Bitch, did you just say it's okay to destroy other people's shit? Because then, yeah, I want to go to your house and I want to burn your shit in protest for the failure of the education system. You don't deserve, and then she'll be like, well, I don't have a house. Okay, I'll burn down your apartment. I'll burn down your car. Violence is never the answer. Wrong. Violence is the answer to a very specific set of questions. Somebody likened this to the Boston Tea Party. That wasn't the government. That wasn't the government hurting you. That was an employer you felt was treating you unfairly. If somebody digs into this and they tell me that that warehouse was operated by a bunch of thugs that drove around and clubbed people over the head, threw them in a panel van, put them in leg irons and put them in a warehouse, cool, burn that shit down. I think we can all agree. If you found out that in there were slaves, burn that shit down. Cool. I'll get on your side of that. All 20 people got out. What if somebody was taking a nap on their break? I used to work 12s. I was entitled to 2 lunches, 2 30-minute lunches. I was also entitled to, I believe, 3 15-minute breaks. I used to talk to my boss because they needed somebody to work 12s. I said, hey, look, Big Papa, we'll do it like this. Let me take a 15-minute break and go right into my first lunch, right at the end of the 8-hour shift. So all your time charting looks right. So I'm going to work 7 hours and 15 minutes. I'm going to take a 15-minute break, a 30-minute lunch, puts me at 8 hours. I'm going to take my other 30-minute lunch and then come back to work. My boss was like, well, why? Said, because in the first 15-minute break, I'll be able to pick up my food, run to the break room, chow that shit down, and then close my eyes for a power nap. Worked great. I would have hated to fucking be burned alive because some asshole thought it was okay to burn other people's property. This is why I think we're fucking cooked. We're cooked because people are saying, this is okay. It's okay that he did that. No, it's not fucking okay. It's not okay that happened at all. It's not okay even in the littlest bit. It's not okay that company was being run by shit eels, but you also had the option to quit. You had the option to not work there. Let me go a different direction, because we need to talk about what's wrong with the fucking people on this planet. Right? Pope Leo at Pontifex. God does not bless any conflict. Anyone who is a disciple of Christ, the Prince of Peace, is never on the side of those who once wielded the sword and today drop bombs. Military action will not create space for freedom or times of peace, which comes only from patient promotion of coexistence and a dialogue among people. That sounds like some Pope shit right there, right? That sounds like the Vicar of Christ. That's what the fuck I expect, number one, the Pope to say. Number two, the Pope, although his country is really, really small, the Pope is a world leader, right? This is what somebody actually said. And I will never say that you should ever harass anybody online. But if this guy happened to get some nasty grams, he probably deserves them. You're a failure. You know not the Bible of which you claim to preach. You're a failure to all Catholics and Christians. Typo. Across the globe. You do not speak for God. You're a blasphemer. Can't let that shit go. Are you literally arguing with the Vicar of Christ about his speaking for God? And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. How the fuck does the Pope not speak for God when JC told one of the boys, here's the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and I'll tell my dad, whatever rules you make on earth will be rules that are considered binding for heaven, but whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. But we have fucking people that are literally, you're telling the fucking Pope he's a failure? How the fuck do people not believe that the Pope has been to seminary school? How many masses has the Pope done in his career? You understand, for those of you that aren't Catholic, there is a book, there is a lectern, and there is a reading of the day every day. There is a first reading of the day. There's a responsorial. There's a second reading of the day. And then there's the priest's reading of the day. If you go to a full Catholic Mass, 4 different passages of the Bible will be read to you. Now, sometimes it's just a clip. Sometimes it's a whole chapter. Depends on what, at a Catholic school, church, at a church with a Catholic school, quite often, the kids from the church will be doing the reading. So you won't get, like, for example, if the first graders are doing the reading of the day, they're not going to do Matthew 16, because Matthew 16 is, as you can see, all of this is Matthew 16. So this is fairly long. The 8th graders will, the high schoolers will. The high schoolers will read all of Matthew 16 as the first reading. The first graders would probably read Peter declares Jesus is the Messiah. They'd probably read only this. How the fuck is a human being, like, how can you say that the Pope doesn't speak for God? Did God hire this fucking person to be their press agent? I'm pretty certain if God needed a press agent, he could just open the clouds and be like, hey, stop putting shit in the coffee. I believe that video Trump put up yesterday is him normalizing more violence, those that live by the sword. Yeah, those that live. There's a whole section of the Bible that Catholics talk about Jesus saying, take up the sword. And it's not until verse, I believe, 54 that it says, and the lesson is, those who live by the sword shall either be put to the sword or shall die by the sword, depending on the translation. They both mean the same thing. Another reason for Trump to stop the Epstein files. From what I heard, I gotta confirm something real quick. I don't think there's anything in the Epstein files that incriminates Donald Trump. I don't believe there is. I believe there's a lot of guilt by association with Donald Trump in the Epstein files. Notice what I'm saying here. I'm not saying Trump didn't hurt kids. I'm not saying Trump isn't a morally bankrupt person. But I do think it's odd that the First Lady is calling on Congress to hold a hearing for survivors. The First Lady's public remarks puts the focus back on the Epstein files after the President and Acting Attorney General have suggested the issue should be in the rearview mirror. Now,
the lies linking me with the disgrace.
Tonight, Melania Trump with a surprise announcement, breaking her silence on Jeffrey Epstein.
The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today.
The First Lady speaking publicly for the first time about the convicted sex offender, categorically denying any knowledge of or involvement in Epstein's crimes.
Okay. The problem with denial, you're in a fucking photograph with him. So you know Jeffrey Epstein. Don't deny ties to him. Say, yeah, I knew him. I never. The best defense anybody that gets tied to Jeffrey Epstein could have is be like, yeah, I knew him. I didn't watch him molesting anybody, because if I had watched that behavior, I would have called the police. But when you say, I don't have any ties to him, well, this is a photograph. So this is a tie. It's a very minor tie, but look at the difference. Did you know this person? Yeah, I knew him. Did you know this individual? Yeah, I knew him.
And saying they had only a distant social connection.
Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common.
Mrs. Trump and her team worked aggressively behind the scenes over the last year to knock down what they saw as false or defamatory news stories and rumors connecting her to Epstein, earning retractions from some media outlets.
I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I was not a participant.
Another propaganda video from U.S. government to whitewash Trump. Let me stop you right there. You stumbled into the wrong show if you're going to just badmouth the U.S. across the board. Okay? You're not going to be here long. If you have things you want me to look at, cool. But we're not going to say another propaganda video. This is the First Lady of the United States. Unless you have a smoking gun, there's nothing on her. The only thing on her is that, like Elon Musk, she violated her visa, but we let hundreds of thousands of people do that shit. Don't fucking say it's a propaganda video. This is the First Lady's speech. There is an entire U.S. office called the Office of the First Lady. She made a statement. This isn't a propaganda video. Otherwise, everything is propaganda. People paint with the brush too often, and that's why people are too blind and they can't see. This isn't a propaganda video. This is her coming out. And you didn't, and what's even worse is you called it a fucking propaganda video, and you can still see on the screen there's 50 seconds left. So shut your cock hole until she finishes talking.
Was never on Epstein's plane and never visited his private island.
Okay, so there's a mistake. Because we know Donald Trump was on Epstein's plane 8 times. So that's a mistake. She shouldn't have said that. Somebody who wrote her speech or proofed her speech fucked up. What we know is that the years Donald Trump was on Epstein's plane were years before Epstein owned the island. Dude, I have it. I don't run the show according to you. You got to be patient. You don't run this ship, I do.
Melania Trump's name is mentioned more than 100 times in the Epstein files released by the DOJ, which also include this email she sent to Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell in 2002, complimenting Epstein and Maxwell on a flattering magazine story and inviting Maxwell to call her in New York.
My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence.
Yeah, it's what people see. What the average person doesn't understand is that in order to come up in corporate, you got to be a mover and a shaker. When I was in corporate, there were days that I would get home, I would throw my fucking wallet and my car keys in the bowl by the door. I'd get up 4 flights of stairs and somebody would call me and be like, hey, we're going over to XYZ for drinks. I'll be like, yeah, I'll be right there. Let me change shirts. And I'd be like, fuck, I don't want to go do this. But you got to maintain social contacts. If she had emailed Epstein, this would be a completely different story. She did what is common. You're going to kick, hey, you looked good. You look good.
Mrs. Trump concluding with a call for Epstein's survivors to be given a full and open congressional hearing to tell their stories.
Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
She calls on Congress to have open hearings with the victims. Now, what you kept asking me was, what are my thoughts about ICE is doing in the US and the propaganda they are spreading? They're not spreading propaganda. ICE is charged with a particular role. And if we're going to jump straight to ICE, I got a clip ready. I got a clip ready for that too. Before I say what ICE is doing, let's watch this clip.
Now on sanctuary policies in the state of Illinois, Immigration and Customs Enforcement saying that Governor Pritzker has overseen the release of more than 1,700 dangerous criminal illegal aliens since the 20th of January, including murderers, pedophiles, and kidnappers.
Look at that shit. Look at that shit. 5 murderers that there was an ICE detainer on. The state of Illinois didn't detain 5 murderers. Didn't detain 141 perpetrators of assault. But the next one down is what pisses me off. 10 sexual predators were released in a sanctuary state by direction of the governor and his policies. Man, with all respect, nobody is illegal in stolen land. No, fuck off. Yes, they are. Yes, they are illegal on stolen land because history is written by the victors. It is from the era that was of yesterday. Otherwise, if people are gonna keep repeating that nobody's illegal in stolen land, then just fucking kill them all next time and leave no survivors. Case in point, look at your own history. Southern England was Anglo. The Saxons invaded. And what was the Saxons' policy? The Saxons? What was their policy? Never leave behind a man, woman, or child that can take arms against you. That's why all of the northern part of England, that's why you don't have people saying, I'm Northumbrian. That's why I'm over here. Because the Saxons fucking killed them all. They didn't leave anybody around. Is that what you want? Because that's the only other alternative. By the way, when you lose a war and you cede land, it wasn't stolen. You should have fought harder. What about Native Americans, mate? Okay, first of all, motherfucker, I ain't your mate. We're not friends. I just met you. I'm not your fucking bro. Because if I was your bro, I'd beat the shit out of you for being stupid. What about Native American, mate? Their lives do matter. Their lives absolutely matter. Play it out, though. You got the 10-word answers. Those are awesome. Let's play it out. What happened to the Native Americans was terrible. How do you fix it? What do? Give them land. There's already people on the land. So what do you do with those people? I live in a town that was a Native American tribe's land. Call me bro or mate one more time. You just won't have a privilege of speaking here. Because I believe you're just a troll and you're inherently disrespectful. What are you going to do? Give this town back to the Native American tribe? They're all fucking dead. There are no survivors of the Native American tribe who claimed this land. But the thing is, by what right did they have to claim the land? Native Americans aren't native to America. Native Americans crossed the land bridge from Russia. So that's why Native Americans and Asians have a common ancestry back. So what? The problem is you say nobody's illegal on stolen lands. No. Native Americans, you missed what I said. This tribe is gone. There are no survivors of the tribe of Indians that lived here. Zero. There's none. There's none. So who do you give the land back to? The answer is nobody. You don't give the land back to anybody. People have the 10-word answer because the 10-word answer is easy. Great. Give me 10 more. How do you fix it? Well, we should give California, Nevada, and Arizona and Texas back to Mexico. No, we shouldn't, because Texas won. Texas won. You started a war. And by the way, remember, didn't we buy some of the land? Oh, well, they couldn't claim it. The Russians couldn't have owned Louisiana. Or, I'm sorry, the French couldn't have owned Louisiana. Why? They had no right to. Okay, but they did, and we bought it. Russia couldn't legally hold Alaska, but we bought it. So it's not stolen. It's bought and paid for. You go work real hard to get that original piece reversed first. Yeah, I'm not saying that colonialization and colonialism right now is a good idea. I'm saying it is the era we had. Otherwise, there's an awful lot of people on the planet who would have no home. Because guess what? My family would then get kicked out of Ireland because my family was sent from Wales to Ireland because my family had moved, the tribe had moved from Gaul to Wales. Killing innocent and whitewashing their great America and attack anyone who speaks against them. Well, nothing to say about this man. What the fuck are you talking about? You took us down a road, and I tried to get down that road, and then you went on your propaganda bullshit of nobody's illegal on stolen land. Yes, the fuck they are. Yes, the fuck they are, because when somebody comes into your rose garden and they plants a flag, you got two choices. Fight back and win, or fight back and lose. If you fight back and win, they ain't on your land, you held it. If you fight back and lose, it ain't your fucking land anymore. I'm not saying that's right, I'm saying that is what it was. Otherwise, all these people do this bullshit argument, nobody's illegal on stolen land. That argument validates the Israelis killing all the Palestinians. And be careful with that, because when your thought process is 10 words, well, if it's your land, you have the right to defend it. Well, Israel is only taking back the kingdom of Israel. It was theirs first. The only people that could contest Israel taking over all that land again would be the Canaanites, and they got merged, blended, hybridized into Israel. So, are you saying that what Israel is doing is okay because I'm now applying your argument? Israel's not doing anything illegal because it's their land and it was stolen and they're just evicting people. Is that the argument you want to make? Because that's the argument you framed. You've used the word propaganda. Some of it's propaganda, but what do you have to say to this? It's funny that you'll be like, no, go back to my point. Go back to my point. Go to the propaganda. Are you saying it's okay for a governor to ignore federal law and release 10 sexual offenders back into the population? Because I'm a citizen of this state, And I don't like the fact that 10 fucking rapists were let back into my society. When a federal agency has a detainer for them and says, hey, you have that Zinvov guy in custody. Hold him for me. We'll deport him because he's a fucking rapist. Let's get rid of him. Oh, no, we'll let him back into society. I don't have to talk about Israel. I'm going to talk about the great America. Right. But see, again, you don't get to drive the show. See, this isn't Zinov's channel. This is Jalan's channel. So when you put something fool ass out there, I want to take it and see where else it applies. So because the Ukraine signed a deal like 40 years ago that said they would never try to join Russia or join NATO, and if they did, Russia had every right to take back the land, by your argument then, Russia's not doing anything illegal, Israel's not doing anything illegal. I don't know if I want to live in your world. Because your world seems to only want to be able to look at one thing and say that's wrong. But when I take that wrong and I use those lenses, okay, I'm going to put on Zinov's glasses. Oh shit, America's wrong. Russia's right though, and Israel is righteous. I'm going to take these glasses off because these glasses are bullshit. I don't like your premise. I don't like your premise at all.
Sending them back into neighborhoods and putting American lives at risk. It is turnstile justice.
Turnstile justice. In my state, you have to commit an egregious offense against society to have bail denied. Now, so I don't ignore Nex over here. If you think land is stolen, either shut up or leave and give it back. I agree with that. If you believe land is stolen, shut up, leave, give it back. The U.S. was only the other conquering nations that actually allowed those conquered to remain in the land and even give them their own separate land to govern themselves. With the loosest, and I do mean the loosest agreement, I agree with you, but only on the premise, not on the application. I agree with you on the premise. I agree with you on the premise. It's kind of like the black reparations, 40 acres and a mule. Only some people got them and some people lost their land. Somebody brought up a good point the other day. I got into a great debate after the show. They said, why were the slave owners compensated, but not the slaves? And I said, as much as you're going to hate to hear this answer, the slave owners had property taken away from them. I don't agree with the idea that people are property. I agree the way the Constitution is written, slaves were property. The Constitution delineates out how you will be compensated, that the government doesn't have rights to take away your property. So when you took away their property and freed all the slaves, they had to be given reparations. Just like if you need to take my house to build a road through eminent domain, you have to give me fair market value. You can't just take my shit. This is where we have the problem. All these fucking liberals, I support your freedom of speech, but I demand intellectual speech. You have 10 words. Give me 10 more. Give me 10 after that. How are we going to make it happen? We need universal health care. Cool. Here's the starting premise, right? Universal health care would cost $4 trillion a year, and last year we took in $5.25 trillion. Universal health care would cost $4 trillion a year. Well, European countries do universal health care for a lot. Yeah, those European countries have a fraction of the total number of people that we do. So it scales better. We have states with more people in them than the whole fucking country does. There's European countries that have a population the size of Chicago. Spend less on the army. Okay, genius. Since you decided to pipe up again and be a dumb fuck, 4 trillion, 5.5 trillion leaves you 1.5 trillion to run the rest of the fucking government. Even if you cut out the military, you're still 5 trillion short. Because universal health care would cost 4 trillion. We brought in 5.25 and we spent approximately 6.1. So we already ran into a deficit to run everything. By the way, I would love to spend less on our military. I would love to. Except for ignorant ass people that don't understand that for a kid in the inner city who's low performing, the Department of Defense is a great opportunity. Going to give them remedial education and get them reading at the 9th, 10th, or 11th grade level because they have to pass their book work. We're going to give them a career. We're going to give them free food. We're going to give them 4 walls and a roof, 3 hots and a cot. They get medical care starting from day one. You have no... People are like, spend less on the military. Spend less on the military. You don't know how many people I've seen go into the military and then get recycled 2 weeks because they need a shit ton of dental work that was missed at their MEPS exam. Or they get to their first duty station and they don't go right to tech school. They go to, holy fuck, we need to fix this. I've seen people show up. I showed up at basic training because I was fortunate. I had medical care. The person, it was almost a fucking like amazement. I was 23 years old, went into basic training. Everybody in front of me is getting all these fucking shots. I'm like, fuck, man, I don't like needles. And I'm like the last guy alphabetically. So my TI sees me sweating bullets. My TI was a cool guy with me because I was older. He's like, what's your problem? I was like, I do not like needles. And he's like, it's not that bad. And I said, do you see how many shots some of them guys are getting? I get up there, 0. Not a damn shot. Why? Because my parents had medical insurance. People are like, spend less on the military. Okay, which people do you think aren't going to get to go to the military if we shrink down jobs? The top performers or the bottom performers? Yeah, let's spend less on the military. Let's take away an avenue of advancement for underprivileged people. Oh, well, you're just saying that because you want the poor illiterate minorities to have to go fight your wars. Got bad news for you. We don't send poor, dumb, illiterate people into combat until we've educated them. They still have to pass school. Now, 11 Bravo, mentally not stimulating, physically demanding. Artillery, little bit higher. Medical, all the way the fuck up here. This bullshit that people say, these are quirky little, like, 15-second, 30-second TikTok clips, but that's why everybody's fucking dumb. Because you can't back up what you're saying. You want to be the Cali girl. LOL, I'm so random. I'm going to say these 5-word phrases in a random Twitch show because I want to feel self-important. But even though the streamer that's doing this is able to just bitch slap me up and down the avenue because I'm ignorant as fuck, I won't go and learn. I'll just keep repeating the same shit. What wars? To invade other countries? Yeah, let's talk about that. We went into Iraq in the 90s. Why? Because a little teeny tiny country called Kuwait got invaded. By the way, we built a coalition of 42 other countries. Or did you forget about that? Did you forget that? 42 other countries signed up to come to war with us to liberate Kuwait. Or to invade other countries like Afghanistan, who we didn't want to invade Afghanistan. We wanted Afghanistan to just give us Osama bin Laden. They said no. We said NATO, and NATO said, go fuck them up, boss. And we said back to Afghanistan, well, NATO said we can come fuck you up. They're going to support us. We're on the way. You sure you just don't want to give us Osama bin Laden? Because we'd really just rather have Osama bin Laden. Now, second Gulf War. We went in there for weapons of mass destruction and we didn't find anything. They never had weapons of mass destruction. Yes, the fuck they did. We knew they had chemical weapons. We sold them to Iraq. In 1978, we had the shipping receipts. We sold them to them so that Iraq could invade Iran. Again, I'm not forgiving it, but you're saying to invade other countries. What did we keep in Afghanistan? Nothing. No, we found lots of stuff. I don't know why people keep reporting this shit. We didn't find anything. Yeah, we didn't find anything because they shipped them to Syria. And we found the reports that they shipped them to Syria. And then oddly enough, the president of Syria starts using chemical weapons against his own people. How did he get them? Well, we don't know, boss. We don't know how he got them. That's the liberals for you. We don't know how he got those chemical weapons. Could they have been the ones from Iraq? Oh, there were never chemical weapons in Iraq. Motherfucker, he used them in the first Gulf War. He deployed chemical weapons in the first Gulf War. Where the fuck do you think he got them? Now, what justification do we have to go into Iran? Personally, we shouldn't be in Iran. We were justified in bombing them last year. Iran signed a treaty that says we will not develop nuclear weapons. So, 0% enriched uranium to 100%. Here's your quantity. Oh, well, we should do this the other way. 0% enriched uranium, 100% enriched uranium. Remember, when it comes to uranium, 90% is your threat line. Hey, asshole. Osama bin Laden was in Afghanistan at the very beginning because Afghanistan told us he was there. Maybe you want to not argue with the guy that served in the military who did this for a living. Afghanistan said he's here. And then they said, but no, you can't have him. Pakistan said, the fuck no, he's not here. He's not here. Pakistan was one of the first countries to reach out to us and say, if we get intel that he's coming into our country, we will fucking call you. We will let you. We do not want to fuck with you. We didn't find the motherfucker in 2001, did we? We didn't find him in 2001. We found him 10 fucking years later. Holy shit, you mean somebody could move from Afghanistan? Let me back that up. You've never gone to the grocery store, right? Never? You've never gone shopping? You've never gone to a movie theater? Hey man, he's at his house. Hold up, no, he left. What do you mean he left? What the fuck do you mean, what do I mean? He left. So anyway, back to Iran. 90% is the threat level for nuclear weapons. Here's a couple of really, really key numbers that people need to understand about nuclear weapons related material. 5% is all you need to enrich your uranium to for most power needs. Iran could make the argument that they want to make uranium enriched to 20% because of higher technology nuclear power, which they don't even have the ability to employ right now. But fine, you're saying it's for power. Yeah, people think WMD only means nuclear weapons. They forget about chemical and biological weapons. So now here's the thing. Why do you have 1,000 pounds of 60% enriched uranium when that's 55% above what you need for nuclear power? Iran said, we will not develop nuclear weapons. They signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. We will not develop nuclear weapons. Now, well, why can Israel have nuclear weapons? Because they never signed the fucking treaty. Again, if I had been president, I would have said, no, it's 20% next. You want to dig down into that rabbit hole. 20% is there's high efficiency nuclear power at 20%, which is why I said Iran doesn't need above 20, doesn't need even 20%. They don't have the infrastructure. Up to 20. And I'll give them up to 20 because I don't want to quibble about 9 or 7, 11% to 20%. You can't really make a fucking bomb out of 20%. I mean, you can make a dirty bomb, a small one, but you don't have to worry. But starting at 60 to 90 is, you don't need to be at 60 at all. There's no need to be there. There's no need at all. But Iran's like, but we're going to do what we want. Now, on one hand, I don't think anybody has the right to tell any other sovereign nation what they can and cannot do. But I do believe the rest of the world can get together and say, you signed a treaty that said you wouldn't do this. But you already had nuclear weapons. Yeah, but we signed the part of the treaty that said we won't distribute our nuclear weapons to anybody. See, my problem with people is that people think they know everything, and yet there are scholars who spend their whole life studying who don't claim to know everything. I don't know everything. I know what I know. I don't know beyond what I know. But I do know these fucking quirky bullshit lines like no one's illegal on stolen land. You know what? It's not stolen land. You lost a war. Getting from 60 to 90 is a matter of weeks, months, not years. You are correct, except there is one other piece. Getting from 60 to 90 requires an enrichment facility that we have no proof Iran has. We have zero credible intel that says they have a high enrichment facility that they can take the 1,000 or so pounds of 60% they have up to 90. You can get 60 out of modifying light water reactors. You shouldn't be doing it that way, but you can. But you are correct. It's once you get to 60, the jump to 90 is short. But you need a special type of enrichment facility to do it, and we have no proof they have it. Yeah, Iran is going to end up getting an enrichment facility, and the U.S. is going to pay for it. Art of the deal. Iran has the economic ability minus how can I say this? If all the sanctions were off of Iran, then they would be able to make nuclear weapons. Yeah, we have no proof they have the facilities, but Iran lies constantly, except in this case, Iran got blown up last summer in Midnight Fury, Midnight Hammer, I think. And then Iran was like, what the fuck? We're in the middle of negotiating with you. And this is the piece, this is where I blame America. Summer of 25, Iran and the U.S. are negotiating, and the U.S. bombs Iran. And Iran still came back to the negotiation table, and then we started a fucking military conflict with them. Now here's the funny part, the comical part. Donald Trump has 18 days. In 18 days, he must begin drawdown. But let's say he doesn't. What's going to happen? America should work with Canada to build CANDU reactors, and since you don't need to enrich the uranium to work the plant and build those, yeah, what should happen is, and the French did this, but we run into a problem because I want the nation of Sprocadoo, I want Sprocadoo to be completely autonomous and independent. I don't want to be reliant on foreign engineers and foreign physicists and have foreign people in my land running my nuclear power plant. I want autonomy. I want sovereignty. There's where we run into the problem. I want sovereignty. I want the ability to make my own decisions. And that's where Iran is. Think of it from this perspective. Let me grab a quick fact. Nothing is going to happen because Trump has already secured the funding for the military. Say what you want, but he knows how to play the game. Actually, he hasn't secured the funding for the military. I don't think they voted on that. But here's the thing that our leadership never considers, right? China, 5,000 years old. Persia, 2,500 years old. The United States, 250 if you're being generous, 238 if you're being factual. I think we're some people that have served in our government and our military have failed to recognize you're yelling at Iran like they're a misbehaved child. Iran is one of the longest surviving civilizations on the planet. It's right, but I account for the radical change. I don't go all the way back. I go back as far as Cyrus the Great, because that's where, because I mean otherwise China can claim, like, if we don't put some serious thresholds, guide rails on it, then fucking Israel claims that they're 10,000 years old. And you're like, whoa. Yeah, you could technically, you can go back to the beginning of fucking time with Iran, China, Israel. And then the Africans are like, hold the fuck up, because however old you are, we are. Quantum Traveler, any country that has nuclear reactors has the ability to make dirty bombs. That's it. If you have a nuclear reactor in your country, you have nuclear bombs. It was just an excuse to invade. Nope. I told you. I already warned you. I already fucking warned you. I've already fucking warned you. If you're just gonna be an American hating individual, go hate America somewhere else. Jerk off in your own bathroom. You're not jerking off in my chat. Put the lotion in the fucking basket and have intellectual thought or say nothing. And yes, every country has dirty bombs. If you have nuclear power, you have all the components you need to make a dirty bomb. So if you want to know which countries have it, look up every country that has nuclear power. Period. That's it. It's why we treat nuclear waste as a threat to national security. Because nuclear waste can be used as a bomb. All you got to do is dump a couple of barrels of nuclear waste into an aquifer, and that water is unusable for, I don't know, about the next 2,500 years. Then you got to go in and you got to do cleanup, and like, you think an oil spill. No, there's not stockpiles of dirty bombs. I'm going to give you a really quick abridged. Goodbye. This is the second time you're going to get banned. Any more out of you and you're just banned. So, without giving you all the details, here's your uranium core. Here's your uranium rod. Here is your housing device. Here is your channel. Here is your other small piece of uranium packed with explosive. I detonate the explosive, sending this in this direction. You have your core and your drilled out knob. Your ball of uranium drives the core, the drilled out core, into the ball. Nuclear explosion. But Jay, you didn't give very fucking You didn't give very fucking detailed instructions. Yeah, no shit. This isn't called how to make fucking dirty nuclear weapons 101. He secured it through the... No, he hasn't. The last time I checked... I'm not even 100% sure. I don't even think Donald Trump has I don't think he got his operations budget approved. Yes, Quantum. Oh, no. Yes, it is illegal to use those. Yeah, I got bad news for you. The funding exists for normal operational budgets through the rest of this year. Yeah, they were gonna. Yeah, this is. I can't show this whole story, but this is the big piece that happened with Pete Hegseth saying we need $200 billion, and Congress was basically like, the soft feel they got from Congress was go fuck yourself. You're not getting $200 billion. I'm looking up the funding line. No, the 200 billion has not been approved. So, real quick, let me give you like a Reader's Digest version. The Reader's Digest version of how the military budget works. It break in an imaginary world where we actually pass budgets and not continuing resolutions. So on 1 October of 2027, I'm sorry, 1 October of 2026, 1 Oct 2026, this starts fiscal year 27. Because remember, the calendar year and the U.S. budget aren't aligned. The fiscal year starts on 1 October. So the military gets 800 billion. I don't know what they're going to get. They get 800 billion. This is sustainment. This is what we commonly refer to as OTE funds. This is your organize, your train, and your equip funds. There is only a very teeny tiny percentage of this for ops. And that's what should worry you about being an American citizen. They approved the military to have an $800 billion budget. But then when Donald Trump goes to war, this budget is going to ops, which means you stop doing some of your organizing, some of your training, and some of your equipping. For example, you need to buy for your unit 10 pairs of PPE. Well, the RA, the resource advisor, comes to you and says, hey, we just took a 15% haircut off of our budget. The 15% of our budget was clawed back by the wing, and then the numbered Air Force, and then the MAGCOM, and then the Air Force itself, and then the Pentagon. Whoever, when you're a flight commander, like I spent most of my time, your budget isn't even really your budget. You're just giving guardrails. Like, if the money's available, you can spend this, but you still have to mother may I. So what happens is the RA comes to you and says, look, I can't fund 10 sets of PPE. You're going to have to stretch the PPE you have. Well, it's personal protective equipment. But because we've all been around long enough to play the game, I knew chances were if I asked for 5, you'd tell me I can only have 3. So I asked for 10, so I'd get 7. And now I look like a fucking hero because you come to me and you say, I can't have 10, I could have 7. But I say, hey, you know what? I could probably get away with 5, but I really can't afford to have anything else slashed. I needed 3. I asked for 10. I got 5. Welcome to the waste in the military because of how the fucking game is played. Salty Bread said you could end hunger in the US with the money spent on the war for several years to come. Such a waste. Yes. Yes. Now, thoughts on the US using nuclear energy. U.S. Air Force opens power reactor RFI. More than 30 aircraft perform an elephant walk at Eielson Air Force Base, which has absolutely nothing to do with this. The U.S. Air Force wants to hear from companies that could be interested in deploying small nuclear reactors at its bases. The RFI, posted Wednesday, intends to assist the federal government identifying potential developers and understanding the company's capability to design, license, fuel, construct, and deploy small, micro, or modular reactors in compliance with applicable regulatory, safety, experimental, or environmental and security requirements. Let me say this. I'm just going to say this, and I don't give a fuck what anybody's opinion is on this one. The military base is already a target. And now you want to put a target of opportunity for terrorists on every military base. Look, in my opinion, nuclear facilities should have security that is only surpassed by nuclear weapon facilities in the White House. We don't need to have that shit. We don't need that. I know people don't like it. And when I was enlisted, I used to hate working on generators. But there is nothing more reliable than a fucking military grade spec diesel generator. There ain't nothing more fucking reliable. It literally, let me see if I can pull up the button, right? There is literally a button on your average generator. I'm going to show you this because I love this motherfucker, right? I love this. You see this little thing right here? This little motherfucker right here? It's called a battle short. Does anybody know enough about electronics to know what a short does? A short doesn't give a fuck about anything between here and here, resistors, capacitors, it doesn't care. It's just going to be pretty much a piece of wire. This fucking button is amazing. You can shoot the shit out of this thing, and as long as you can click the battle short button, it'll keep fucking running. The problem is, it's probably not going to start again if you let it run out of fuel. We do not need temperamental energy when it comes to the Department of Defense. I'm not going to name the location, but a military installation is switching to alternative energy. And their solar field is outside of the perimeter of the fence. So what the fuck do you think's going to happen in 10 years when the local energy grid doesn't have redundancy to completely power the base, but it's in the contract that the base gets power before anybody else does? It's not hard to drive a fucking semi through a fence and drive through a solar field. And it won't be a problem for a year. Yeah, that shit is vulnerable as hell. And I literally was mortified at it. I literally said, what the fuck is this? It's the bullshit. But we've got, the problem is we have dumb fucking people making decisions because we are making the average as the individual today has shown us, the average user is the average person. Their IQ is going down. Their intelligence is going down. Yeah, they don't need a truck. They need a little drone swarm. You're absolutely right. Right? 100%. right? Yeah, Stumpy was referencing something very specific.
Is it true half the people you meet are below average intelligence? Is it true half the people you meet are below average intelligence?
Yes, half the people you meet are below average intelligence. So many times, this is why I'll never be a popular streamer, because people pop into the show.
Welcome to the inside of your head. It's kind of empty in here.
We've got, you know, I don't care if you have a great idea. You have to be able to articulate it. Nobody's illegal on stolen land. Okay? So Israel's lawful in what they're doing. Russia's lawful in what they're doing. That's not what I meant. That's what you said. Ukraine is in violation of a treaty. Therefore, Russia's within their right to execute the clauses of that treaty. Russia's not the aggressor. Ukraine is. Jay, I can't believe I can't believe you believe that. I don't believe it. But I'm taking your point to conclusion. Yeah, but it's not your land. Should have fought harder. I want my original land back. But unfortunately, where my family's original land is, got to kick out all the French. My tribe begins its origin story in Gaul, then went to Wales, then showed up late to a battle and got kicked over to Ireland. So guess what? Get all those French people out of my country. You can have your land back when we can drop the first domino. And where do those people go? Those people will be like, but I am from France. Be like, yeah, but you're not really France. French wasn't a thing. It was Gaul. Now get the fuck out. You're not the same people. You are the dirty half-blood mixed people. Because what do you think happened when Rome took over Gaul, France, and they said, you killed X number of our soldiers. We're enslaving 1 million of your people. What big news is coming out of Africa? What big news is coming out of Ireland this week? Right now, Ireland has a big problem. There's no fuel. Ireland is, civil unrest. Ireland is out of fuel. It's a really bad fucking situation to be in. Ireland doesn't have the ability to store as much fuel as it needs. So what you're seeing right now is, without boring the shit out of you, yeah, Ireland has a nice refinery, but no oil. Without boring all the shit out of you about logistics, you have two types of logistics. You have push logistics and pull logistics. Push logistics is better, but it costs more to the consumer. And you know that if it costs more to the consumer, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. Push logistics is better, but it costs more to the company. Pull logistics is just in time, but it costs more money to the consumer. You walk in to buy a car in the old days, my Gen X people, baby boomers, you didn't go to a fucking car lot that had 500 cars on it. That was too expensive for the fucking car dealership. You went in, they had a model vehicle. You took it for a test drive. You went in, you decided you wanted to buy it. You go into the salesman's office. He's got a book of upholstery. Do you want this type of upholstery or this type of upholstery? Do you want this color or that color? And then they had a board with the make and model of the vehicle, the year, make, and model, and all the colors you could have it. Exactly. And then you would say to them, all right, I want a black 1978 Ford Granada with the gray upholstery with the leather separator things. And they'd say, okay. They type it up, not on a fucking computer. They type that shit up. They'd be like, I'll be right back. They'd go in another room. They'd pick up the phone. They were calling the fucking factory. They literally were calling a person at the factory that was sitting there taking orders. What do you need? You need a black 78 Ford Granada. You want the gray upholstery with the leather. Yep. Okay. 3 days. And you're where? South side of Chicago. So 3 days to produce. Yeah, I will be able to get that on the train by Friday. It'll get to your yard station on Monday, and it'll get delivered. So we're looking at about 9 days. And that's what you had. Unless you were cheap or you were fortunate enough to be able to buy the show model. Now, some people will say, well, when I talked to my father about that, he said there were times a year that you could go to the car dealership and they had a lot of cars on the lot. Yeah, the end of year models. They were already shipping 3 cars to the dealership and they have extra 78s built. So they finish them up. They send them to the car dealership. The car dealership sold them on behalf of the company. The car dealership took a really small piece of profit on those. But then everybody started saying, well, what if we had 500 cars on the lot? Well, we'll sell them faster. Well, what happens to the price? The price goes up. Why? Because the price to the car dealership goes up. I own Jalan's Autos. I got to pay the company when I take possession of the vehicle. I'm no longer selling it on behalf of the company. Yeah, if you were real lucky, you could get the end of your model in the following January for even cheaper. Right. Hello there, Tiana. Sitting there with 500 cars worth of inventory, not fun. Yeah. Did you guys see during COVID, 8,000 used vehicles burned up in Orlando? And when I saw that happen, I came back to streaming earlier than I had anticipated. I didn't have the company fully done. I just wasn't monetized at the moment. I came back and one of the first stories I covered was 8,000 used cars. I said, guys, this is going to have ramifications. No, I'm not talking about Rwanda. Some of my chatters are. I said, this is going to have ramifications for 3 to 5 years. Why? Because like everything else, when I buy a new car, I do a trade-in. This trade-in is new to someone else. So they buy that. And then their old car becomes new to someone else. Hand-me-downs. You take 8,000 vehicles out of the hand-me-down process, you're conceivably throttling 40,000. Well, 5 years is enough to catch up, depending. Because, well, let me back that up a second. 5 years is enough time, except what happened is 2 of the major car industries didn't update, 2 of the major rental cars, they didn't do a big buy to replace a third of their fleet because number one, their fleet wasn't used for most of the month of March, most of the month of April, most of the month of June, and half of the month of July. They had 3.5 months, March, April, May, June, 4.5 months of underutilization on their rentals. Number two, even in July of 2020, you didn't have people start doing tourism right away. So like Orlando, when I was down there, because I bullshit with people all the time when I'm on vacation, the guy said, yeah, the airport did 1% of the traffic. Now, what is you asked the question, and I will tell you right now, Africa is not my strong suit. Geopolitically, I don't have a background in Africa, but the DRC is the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, and you've got a conflict that started over ultimately resources. The Rwandans claim a part of the DRC as theirs. Yes, because do you know how all the boundary lines in Africa got drawn? Europe did it. Africa has all these nice straight borders. And they did so because they did it without regard of the people living there. Yeah, blame it on the French and the British specifically, but we also have to blame Germany, Belgium, Portugal, and Italy. Again, yeah, somebody looked at the map and they said, yep, that seems about right. What you have is you have people, like, imagine, I'm going to do it to the map of America, that way I don't offend Africans. So we'll take a look at the map of America and the map of Canada, because I don't give a fuck if I offend Canadians. Let's be honest for a second. This map of these two countries is dumb as shit, right? If you've never noticed this map, right? Look at this map. And I'm gonna make sure that the pen is really thick to see this. Better. We have almost a straight fucking line. In fact, we have a straight fucking line on the border between the US and Canada. And then, for some reason, we have bloop. Right. Isn't there a place where kids have to cross the border to go to school in their Canadian-American border? Yes, there are a couple of places. They don't have to, but they do. Yeah, zoom in on Point Roberts by me. Your students take a bus ride and cross the border twice to go to school. Right. They don't have to. It's the most expeditious way. But when you look at this, right, America claims this lake. America says, you know what? Nah, this shit's ours. And we're going to take half of this shit. And Canada's like, what the fuck? Like, Canada could close that. And I haven't had a chance to look it up, but because Canada has both sides of this, I do believe it is in their legal right to close. But why can't Iran close the Strait of Hormuz? Well, because Oman's on the other side. But if you think about this shit, it makes no sense that the United States doesn't go all the way up. Why am I moving you? It makes no sense that the United States isn't all this. Everything south of the water. Right? Everything south of the water. But then what water? Right? Look at this fucking... Look at this shit. Again, this border right here should be... This border shouldn't go up like that. This border should be like this. This should be Canada. Makes sense for Canada to want that land if you think about it. I agree. I agree, but what, like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, when you look at this area, this should have been Canada, but this should be the US. You're right. Back then, it was very difficult to survey for better lines. And you see this, quite often when you see highways that you start on a highway and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, this shit is straight. That was due to not knowing the topography of the land prior to actually siting the land. You're right. You are correct. And God forbid you try to fix it. Like, and I'll be honest, I think I closed the map. Yeah. Can we just agree? Yeah, you see a lot of that in Europe too. A lot of Europe is basically like, we fought over this field. It is our field. And you're like, whatever, man. Like, I want you to see this US-Canadian border, right? we jag up here, but we juke down there. What? Yeah, they used written agreements as to where the border would be using arbitrary landmarks, but when they actually got out there, the shape of the lakes and the land were nowhere close to what they thought. Yeah. It's like one of the things that I laughed about, I used to be a golf caddy. And when I learned to be a golf caddy, the guy that taught me said, always mark where you think the ball landed against an object. And so I'd be like, okay, it's the tree, it's that ugly ass tree that everybody pits their ball against. It's 2 trees before the 9-hole course, the after the 9-hole to go back to the clubhouse. One day I'm out there with caddies that I had taught, and a caddy is getting screamed at. And so, because I was one of the older caddies, I got sent out there to take over, try to calm the member down. And so I get out there, and I said, sir, my boss has told me to run out here. My name is Jay. I'll be taking care of you for the rest of the tour. I'm going to send him back. If you just give me one moment so I can give him some instructions. I said, what the fuck is your problem? He's like, I kept marking the ball, and then the mark I was using would move. Well, what were you marking it with? A squirrel. Mark it with a fucking object that doesn't have sentience and it won't move itself. Holy fuck. But see, half the people you meet are below average intelligence. If I tell you to mark something, I would assume you know not to mark it with a fucking squirrel. Now, can you help it? Not always. Are there going to be people that make goofy mistakes? Absolutely. I'm going to play this to explain the Iran conflict. So for all of you that have had any confusion about Iran, yes, it was a live squirrel. This is your Iran for dummies.
People always ask, if they're all Muslim countries, why aren't they on the same team? Here's the reality. Religion is just the cover story. The real story is about power. Today at Chanakya Lab, I'm going to give you the real reasons why Saudi and the UAE will never be best friends with Iran. It's not about how they pray, it's about who gets to stay in charge. The first problem is how they run their countries. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are monarchies. They have kings and sheikhs. They want to build big cities like Dubai, and they want the world to come spend money there. But Iran is revolutionary. Since 1979, their whole goal has been to build a buffer zone to protect itself and expand influence. Then you have the proxy wars. This is the part that gets messy. Iran doesn't fight Saudi or the UAE face to face. That's too risky. Instead, they use hired fighters, groups like the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon. Both sides use proxies, but Iran has mastered the strategy. Imagine you're the leader of the UAE. You're trying to build the world's best business hub, and suddenly, a group funded by Iran is firing missiles at your airport in Abu Dhabi. That happened. When someone is paying people to shoot at your house, you stop seeing them as a brother. You see them as an enemy. Period. It's also about money. These countries are selling the exact same thing, oil and gas. They aren't partners, they are competitors. If Iran does well, Saudi loses money. And because of this, the UAE and Saudi have done the unthinkable. They've started working with Israel. Why? Because Israel has the best technology and the best air defense. The Gulf countries realize that a high-tech partner like Israel is more useful for their survival than a Muslim brother who is trying to weaken them. They are choosing safety and power over religious feelings. So forget the unity talk. This is a cold-blooded fight for the top spot in the Middle East. Saudi and the UAE want to be the world's bank. Iran wants to be the region's boss. Those two things can't happen at the same time. In 2026, it's not about the holy books. It's about the bank accounts and the missile shields. What do you think? Is it smart for Saudi to pick Israel over Iran? Or is this going to backfire? Let me know in the comments. Stay ahead of the map. This is the Chanakya Lab.
So the big thing with this is people are confused about Islam. And it's a really, really important thing because there are more sects of Christianity than there are anything else. People like to perpetuate this narrative, this belief that all Christians get along. Everything would be fine if Saudi was aligned with Iran. No, it wouldn't, because it wouldn't be fine. Yes, that is what the key part is. Islam, people believe that Islam is one religion. Islam is not one religion. You said everything would be fine if Saudi was aligned with Iran, except, number one, you want to be a monarchy and they want to be a dictatorship or a theocracy. I don't want to get into the debate on whether or not they're a dictatorship or a theocracy. They both work. Well, I'm a king of a Muslim nation, and I'm a Sunni. And you're a dictator in a country, and you're Shia. And this is where the breakdown is. Isn't a theocracy just a religious dictatorship? No, it doesn't have to be. The Holy See is a theocracy, but it's not a dictatorship. The Pope isn't a dictator. He's a supreme leader, but he's not a dictator. A supreme leader can be a monarch, can be a president, can be a prime minister. All depends on not just what power they have, but how they wield that power. An individual wielding a sharp blade. You immediately think to yourself of a thief. I think of a doctor. Individual wielding a sharp blade. Where we run into the problem is Iran is primarily, 90% Shia. Meanwhile, the rest of the Muslim world, which is 85 to 90% of the world, is Sunni. So you have, that doesn't matter. The Saudis, are the Sunnis in the Saudis would still work? No, they wouldn't. And you say they'd still work together with Iran and Palestine and stop playing Israel? No, they wouldn't. How can I tell you you're absolutely fucking wrong? Here's how I can tell you you're absolutely fucking wrong. Ready? That statement down there is as wrong as you can be. Because if your statement was correct, then why hasn't the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia said to Israel, we will take all 1.8 million surviving Palestinians into our country? Why has Iran not said, we'll take all 1.8 million surviving Palestinians into our country? Because nobody wants the Palestinians. Because every single time the Palestinians go somewhere in a significant number, they cause political turmoil. I'm not saying all Palestinians, because Israel has occupied Palestine. Right. Listen to what I'm saying and don't try to beat me in an argument, because it almost will never happen. Because I frame my question specifically. Why does Iran not take in the Palestinians? They have the room. Why does Saudi Arabia not take in the Palestinians? Why don't the Egyptians? 3 separate countries that have more than enough room to literally transplant all of the Palestinians and give them space. Where's the Muslim Brotherhood? Because what people keep spouting about Muslim Brotherhood is bullshit, because Shia and Sunni Muslims disagree with who should be in charge of the faith. Which is why if you can't look at Islam because it's politically offensive, then look at Catholicism and Christianity. We have Baptists, we have Lutherans, we have Scientologists, we have Mormons, we have Quakers, we have Presbyterians, we have Quakers, we have the Church of England, we have Catholicism, we have the Orthodox Church. That's 10 of 45,000 sects of Christianity. Do you want the Palestinians to leave their homeland? Yes, it's not their homeland. The really bad problem here is you can't call it the Palestinians' homeland, and that is always the worst argument to take, because if you say the Palestinians have a right to the land, you validate the argument that the Israelis have a stronger claim to the land, because the Israelis can then make the argument that says all we're trying to take back is the kingdom of Judea. Judea, a land so named for one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Aren't most Israelis from Eastern Europe? No. When you have a diaspora, when you have a displaced population, it's a disingenuous argument to say they're from Eastern Europe, because you can trace their genetics back to the land. They were displaced by the Roman Emperor Hadrian in approximately 132 to 134 AD. He renamed the area from Judea, the land of Judah, to Syria Palestina. Now, it is true that some Greeks were calling the area something similar to Palestine, but they were referring to the Philistines. Most of what we call Palestinians, we're not talking about where the Palestinians are from. Now, the problem with some of these arguments is that they're bad faith arguments, because I'll take your argument and I'll use that same brush to make my argument. And you say, no. There has never been a country on this planet formally recognized. Okay, Tiana, I'm going to stop you because on my show, if you're completely wrong, I don't give completely wrong a platform. They took over Palestinian through terrorism, and then they killed and genocide other brown Jews. Okay. In Pakistan and in Iraq, and blamed it on the Arabs and others. That isn't true in the fucking slightest. That's not even the fucking story. That's not even close to the story. That's not even remotely, well, we know. No, I don't have a fucking bias, clown. Let me stop you. You can't turn around and say you have a bias. I'm a fucking Irishman. I am the only fucking race of people and the only country of people who can sympathize with both Israel and Palestine. Why? Because our 6 northern counties were stolen by England, and when England was forced to give back all of the other land that they had claimed in colonialism, the whole world applauded them, except they stopped one country short, and they never gave back the 6 northern counties of Ireland. Ireland is 2 different countries. Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom. Southern Ireland is the Republic of Ireland. So don't you dare fucking say I have a bias because I'm a history major and I know what the fucking story is. I literally told you where the origin of the name Palestine comes from. Has Palestine ever been a recognized country on this planet by the authorities who recognize countries? And the answer is no. Rome didn't designate the country of Palestine because Rome didn't create countries. Rome created provinces. The area was called Syria Palestina. So Syria could make the argument that it's all our land. And the Palestinians can say, but it's all our land. And no matter what argument you make at this point forward, don't make the tied to the land argument, because then the Jews pop up and they say, well, motherfuckers, it was our land because we had a king there. Because you can't just wash your hands, because guess what? The Quran doesn't allow you to. The Old Testament doesn't allow you to. The New Testament doesn't allow you to. Everybody agrees that Judea was the land of King David. Period. Dot. And his claim goes back to before the birth of Christ. Now, if you think that's a bias, I'm sorry that you think, I'm sorry that you think it's a bias there. That's just history. That's just facts. The reason why Hadrian renamed it Syria Palestina was because it was called Judea. And the Israelis had a revolt. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to sever their legitimacy in the tie to the land. You wonder why I think differently, because I'm laying it out for you. Palestinians cannot claim, but it's our homeland, because then the Jews say, but it was ours first. So what do you do then? How do you reconcile it? When you start making up shit, okay? You're like, oh, well, the Israelis were using terrorism. Yeah, what the fuck do you call having your capital city rocketed every day for years? Is that not terrorism? I don't blame Israel for their admittance into the UN when Palestine wasn't admitted. I blame the rest of the world for that. How can you say, look up who, okay, let me stop you. Shut the fuck up, because you are literally trying to be right instead of getting educated. If you already think you're right and you already believe I'm wrong, get the fuck out. No, it's not because I think you're right. What the fuck have I said that's been wrong? We're going to throw it back on you. What have I said so far that has been historically inaccurate? That there's never been a country called Palestine? as formally recognized by the group of people that recognize as countries? No. I'm getting mad because you are literally a fucking moron who's saying, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I'm saying, no, I've put out 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 15, 21, 27 facts. Where have I been wrong? I'm going all the way back to 134 AD. I don't want to get to your modern era yet. Tell me where I've been wrong. If I've been wrong, correct me. Please do so. The land wasn't called Judea. Jesus Christ wasn't born a Judean. Am I wrong? Emperor Hadrian in 132 or 134, because the two accounts differ, changed the name from Judea to Syria Palestina. Am I wrong? The Ottoman Empire, who was in control of that region. So I use the Bible as your proof. No, I use Roman accounts of the time. We literally have the Roman account of that era, independent of the Bible, because the Romans kept amazing records, and we know Pontius Pilate was assigned to that area. We have documents of the rebel rabbi, the rabble-rousing rabbi known as Yeshua, was traded for Barabbas by the Jews. So, again, we have the emperor's record where he renamed the land from Judea to Syria Palestina. The Ottoman Empire never made Palestine an independent anything. When the British took it over in World War I, they never gave recognition to Palestine as an independent country. The passports they had with the Palestinian Mandate was to give the people that happened to be there at the time an identifying passport, separate and different, but equal to the British citizens. Then we get up to World War II. What do we do with all the Holocaust Jews? Britain says, oh, well, I own their homeland. I'll give it to them. Where the problem... See, you're like, let's talk about today. Let's talk about today. Where have I been wrong? Please correct me where I've been wrong. If I've been wrong, let me know. And you can't. Because you and I both know that I'm not wrong. Now, you want to talk about the Irgun, which is a national military organization between 1931 and 1948. Was that land Israel in 1931? Because I don't think it was. When did Israel get admitted to the UN? The exact date? Was May 11th, 1949. So your organization, you want to talk about the Irgun. They stopped existing in 1948. Israel wasn't even formally recognized by the UN until 1949, May 11th. So again, where on this timeline does this fact fit? And now the problem is, people like you, okay, yes, and Jews and Palestinians lived under the Ottoman Empire and no one complained. That's not true. It's partially true. No one complained after its collapse. A Zionist, his name is Balfour. He created the Balfour Declaration and moved European Jews after World War II into Palestine. No, that's incorrect. It's partially correct. But when you're talking about something as significant as this, Britain was the lawful owner of that area. True or false? See, what you're doing right now is you're doing what's known as anno history, or you're doing revisionist history. You're saying this guy led 3.5 million surviving Jews of all of Europe into Israel without Britain's permission? Or was it that Britain gave them permission to go back to their homeland? Because if you want to spit facts with me, I'm a fucking dragon. I will spit facts all day, But you don't get to write a bullshit narrative. Whose land was it before the Jews crossing the Red Sea? I'm glad you asked. It was a group of people called the Canaanites. There were Philistines in that area. The land that Moses led his people onto were the Canaanites. What happened to those people? Did the Jews kill them? No. They were a less advanced civilization that got absorbed by Israel. That got absorbed by the Jews that have now come into the land. Do I think it's right? No. There were already people here. You should have kept fucking walking. I'm not using the Bible to defend this and say it's their promised land by God. What I'm saying is they got there, much like every other fucking civilization. The same thing that was happening in China, the same thing that was happening in Persia, the same thing that was happening in Africa, the same thing that was happening in Europe. People were moving around, displacing people that were on lands. The problem is, if you're going to try to make a very, very bad argument, and that argument is, yeah, there were people there before the Canaanites, so it's nobody's land. The problem is, you want to get caught up on legitimacy. Don't get caught up on legitimacy, especially if you're going to be factually incorrect. Don't try to make a legitimacy argument and be like, oh, you don't want to talk about the Irgun. The Irgun never worked for Israel because they stopped existing a year before Israel was created. Why do you think the Brits have the authority to draw borders in the Middle East? Is it because they're colonizers? Hey, that's a great question. That's an amazing question. Because the Ottoman Empire sided against the Allies in World War I. So Britain said, fuck it, we're taking back the Holy Land. Deuce Vault. Shit. I can't say that. I need the Pope to say it. But fuck it, we're going to Deuce Vault that shit up anyway. That's why. That's why. Period. Dot. Again, that's a great question. That's a good talking point. But do you know who else gave the Brits the authority? The Ottoman Empire did when they ceded the land to the British Empire. Or did you forget that fact? See, that's why you got to be careful. Anno history, where people magically change events to justify an outcome. We pretend certain events are more significant than they are so that we can now spin a new narrative. It's revisionist history. It's kind of like you could do an anno history experiment of what if the 10,000 French soldiers never arrive in America to assist Washington's army? Then what happens? What if the French had decided to invade England instead of attacking America? Now what happens? Wouldn't it stopping from existing a year before Israel simply imply it was successful? It could. It could. What you said that was fake history or false was you want to directly one-for-one tie in the Irgun without talking about all the other pieces. The Irgun stopped existing before Israel was a country. I would then bring the point to you. Why has Palestine refused 7 times? There's been 8 total times that they could have had a country of their own. One was a shitty deal. They shouldn't have taken it. Why has Palestine 7 times not taken a deal that would make them a legitimate country? 7 fucking times. 7 fucking times. 7 times it's been, you could be a country. As I said, that's how the Zionists started. Right, but you threw it in there as an argument against the timeline I was laying out. See, what you're not going to ever do to me is because I control the tempo and I control the pace. You're not going to Gish Gallop me. If I'm talking about this homeland argument, you're not going to throw in modern day facts. I'm going to throw those out. And I'm going to say, where was I wrong? See, the problem is, no offense to you, you run around and your ideology has become confused with your identity. You make an argument, I can tear it apart. Don't make that argument. I even said, don't make this argument. Anybody that makes an argument about Palestinian homeland loses because Israel makes the same argument and their argument is stronger. And then you turned around and you said, are you using the Bible? Because you're used to just dismissing the Bible. No, I'm not using the Bible. I'm using Roman accounts. So because you throw out bullshit Gish Gallop, it's my wall. I have a spray brush. I spray your bullshit off my wall. You ain't sticking nothing on my wall I don't want there. You want to talk about, you want to bring up the Irgun, then I'll bring up fucking Hamas, which is even worse because the Palestinians elected a terrorist organization to be their leadership, and Israel let them to their fucking devices, left them to their faith, and instead of Hamas using money to improve Palestine, they used money to build rockets to attack Israel and neglected their sewer system so thoroughly that one of the major aquifers in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip, is polluted with sewage. I feel terrible for the Palestinian people, which, by the way, would have been a good question to ask at the beginning. What do I think about it? I think a lot about it. Because I think about being a young man that was brought up before the Irish Peace Accords that ultimately ended the IRA. So don't think that I don't have a first-hand fucking opinion about what it's like to go and fight an oppressor. So your argument is that Israel had the right to exist, occupy the West Bank and Gaza? No, sorry. I don't even fucking play your goddamn game. See, you're trying to frame me into a statement I've never made. So honestly, this is why you're terrible at your job. This is why you're terrible at presenting your opinions. When did I ever say Israel has the right to murder civilians? When have those words ever come out of my mouth? Now I'll give you the response. 2006, Israel withdraws out of the Gaza Strip. Hamas is elected. In Hamas's own charter, the political charter for the new rulers of the Gaza Strip, item number 7, I believe, is the destruction of Israel. My fucking neighbor elected in a political body, who, by the way, never, ever, ever had another election. Oh, are we going to forget? Are we going to just neglect that too? So Hamas wins an election in 2006 and never had a follow-up election. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. You elected in the right people. They didn't maintain your sewer systems. They built rockets. Oh. But it's Israel's fault. It's Israel's fault you don't have clean drinking water. It's not Hamas's fault. Now, Israel, I'm not going to say they're the good guys here in this story. I'm going to say Israel is just as culpable as the bad guys in modern day. But I would like to point out to you a revised Hamas. Oh, hold on. I have to find it in this document. Give me 1 second. This is what their neighbor said. This is the charter from Hamas in 2017. The liberation of Palestine is the duty of the Palestinian people in particular, and the duty of the Arab and Islamic Ummah in general. Also a humanitarian obligation as necessitated by the dictates of truth and justice. So instead of spending your money on your sewer projects, you built missiles and rockets and your own. So yeah, you're real humanitarian there. Real humanitarian. The following are considered null and void: the Balfour Declaration, the British Mandate document, the UN Palestine Partition Resolution, and whatever resolutions and measures that derive from them or are similar to them. So check this out. What you have is you have a country that literally says, fuck you, UN. We don't recognize you. We want from the river to the sea. The establishment of Israel is entirely illegal and contravenes the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people and goes against their will. Wait, what? So what you're saying now is the political statement of a non-country is that they're not going to recognize the UN. Well, you wonder why they can't get a fucking country. Because they say these are null and void. This right here, ready? This is the justification of Israel to eliminate Palestine, the Palestinian people, all the people in Gaza. You've said, in your opinion, the British Mandate is null and void. The UN Palestine Partition Resolution is null and void. So what's stopping Israel from taking all the land now? It's an honest question. You've said you don't abide by this. Israel's sitting around saying, how the fuck do we take our land back? We don't. We live in peace. Shit. Okay, we'll live in peace. 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. We live in peace. Then you have this document comes out, and you say, we don't recognize this. Okay, well, fuck you then. That thing is what stopped. That statement is what keeps me. That declaration is what keeps my army in my borders. There shall be no recognition of the legitimacy of the Zionist entity, whatever has befallen the land of Palestine in terms of occupation, settlement building, or changes to its features is legitimate. Rights never lapse. Well, I don't know, man. Kind of seems like for 15, 20 years, you didn't want to live in peace with your neighbor. And then, October 7th, you attacked your neighbor. As I always say to people, don't run up to somebody and sucker punch them and then put your hands up and say, I give up. You run up and you sucker punch me and I get up, I'll let you know when the fight's over. Trust me, you'll know. You don't get to sucker punch me, put your hands up and say, I give up. That's cool. Isn't that what Netanyahu openly talks about multiple times? Not only occupied Palestinian. Wait, no. Tiana, we're not doing, you don't get to dodge. You don't get to dodge. I asked you a question. What's your answer to it? Why is it you can't defend any of these statements? You just clip it back. Why is that? Is it because you know that if you actually are legitimate, you know that they're wrong? The establishment of Israel is entirely illegal. How do you want Israel to respond? Let's not forget that the covenant of Hamas calls for the destruction of Israel. Is this not a declaration of war? Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. Okay. You called? Oh, did you call for jihad? So your own why does Hamas get to declare war on Israel and then say, holy shit, we were just kidding? These are legitimate questions in their own documents. But you don't want to talk about the you don't want to talk about what Hamas has done, which is why you're like, oh, you're just biased. No, I'm not biased. I have a question. Why don't you have an answer? This is the covenant of Hamas. By the way, it's not the first one either. They've got a lot of them. And they all, you know what's funny about all Hamas literature? You know what the single thing? Hamas represents the people of Gaza. Here's why you know Hamas represents the people of Gaza. They fucking elected them. Israel didn't appoint Hamas to oversee the land. The people of Gaza elected Hamas. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt are recognized countries and established states with governmental leadership and established agreed borders. Palestine doesn't have borders, which is a big thing I always contend. I always contest this. How can you admit Israel into the United Nations saying you have undisputed borders, but Palestine can't be admitted because it has disputed borders? And Palestine's like, what the fuck? The only people we're disputing our borders with is Israel. It doesn't matter if the Palestinians were born after that. That is the unfortunate side effect with what your predecessors did. Your predecessors... Okay, let me stop you again, Tiana. Why is it I confront you with post after post after post after post after post after post, and all you can do is turn it back around on the Jews? You're the fucking biased one, and beyond that, you're a fucking bigot. You can't defend any of these statements. You have a bias. You hate Israel. You hate Jews. That's okay. It's plainly evident to everybody in the chat. You hate Jews. That's fine. They do a lot of shit right now as a nation to make people hate them. But you can't dispute one thing that I say. You're like, I don't, Netanyahu said this stuff about raping. Great, he said that shit. We'll get to him in a minute. But why is it you can't take a single, our charter is the destruction of Israel. Okay, for 20 fucking years, you've had neighbors rocketing you, and then they come into your country and kill 1,200 people. And Israel's like, well, fuck them. They declared jihad on us. They're not even we can't declare war on them. They're not even a UN recognized country. Fuck them. And you know what's funny about this? It goes right back to the point I asked you at the beginning, which you dodged. Why doesn't Egypt open their border and let the Palestinians settle the Sinai Peninsula? Why doesn't Saudi Arabia take them in and give them 47 square miles of land? Why doesn't Iran take them in? Because Iran doesn't give a shit about the Palestinian people. Iran gives a shit about Hamas members. I don't hate Israel, but I definitely don't think Palestinians should be held responsible for the ideas of a maniacal terrorist organization that kills their own people. Right. I agree. But the problem is, you want to be treated like a legitimate country on your path to statehood? That's who you elected to take you to statehood. If the UN... If the UN had picked them, should Israel be held responsible for funding Hamas? And that very part, Israel didn't fund Hamas. When has Israel ever funded Hamas? It's called revolution. People will die, but you see it through and you have your country back. Most countries have gone through this. This is a big talking point. For years, Netanyahu propped up Hamas. Now it's blown up in our faces. For years, the various governments led by Benjamin took an approach that divided power between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, bringing Palestinian Authority to his knees while making moves that propped up Hamas terror group. The idea was to prevent or anyone else Palestinian. Where's the funding part? Hamas was included in the discussion. Oh yeah, this is propaganda. What it is they were Israel was working with, and this is what I don't like. I'm going to show you this. I'll put this article on screen, but this is the shit that I don't like. He's literally trying to live in peace with his neighbors. Although, granted, right. Okay, stop a second. Stop with the bullshit. Are we blaming Israel for this, or are we blaming the prime minister? Because when you say Israel has allowed suitcases holding millions in Qatari cash to enter Gaza, is the prime minister, is Bibi standing on a border crossing with a gun manning a post? I'm aware. I'm aware it's Israeli media. I'm aware of that. But this is, first of all, this is an op-ed piece. Let me teach you a little something that you really need to know when you read a piece. You see this right here? Right here? Don't bring an op-ed piece and try to introduce it as historical fact. Find a piece that doesn't say op-ed. Find a piece that says news. Op-ed is somebody's opinion. But I'll go down to an interesting point. This person was upset because Hamas was included in the discussions about increasing the number of work permits Israel granted to Gazan laborers, which kept the money flowing into Gaza, meaning food for families and the ability to purchase basic products. What a fucking horrible prime minister he was. What a horrible fucking prime minister he was. Hamas is the legitimate government of the Gaza Strip. They also are a terrorist organization, just like the Sinn Féin in Ireland. They were a terrorist organization and the legitimate government. On Tuesdays, they're the government, and on Thursday nights, they're the IRA leadership. This person is mad. They wrote an editorial. Israeli officials said these permits, which allow Gazan laborers to earn higher salaries than they would in the enclave, were a powerful tool to help what? Preserve calm. No, Wikipedia would be fucking worse because Wikipedia is a collection of citations. I'll teach you how to use Wikipedia. I'll teach you how to use Wikipedia. So here's Wikipedia, right? And you find a line that you find interesting. Qatar has been a financial supporter of the Palestinian militant organization Hamas, transferring more than $1.8 billion to Hamas over the years. Click. Who is Hamas? Who supports Hamas? What you need to know. From the original 14 November, this is what you go. You go down here. Okay, you go down here. You click this, right? Hamas has controlled the Gaza Strip since 2007, repeatedly attacked Israel. It has a number of foreign allies, but where does the terror group get the money supplied to do so? What do you want them to do? It's an honest question. What would have been the better alternative for them to do? Back in 2007? Invade them? I think the Palestinians deserve to live in their homeland, but again, I literally fucking told you at the beginning of that, don't call it their homeland, because now I just hit you back with, cool, I agree with you. But I also agree that Jews get to live in their homeland, and it was theirs first. And it's theirs now, because they have it. I think Palestinians deserve to live in their homeland, and the Jews can live in peace under Palestine. No, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know what would have happened if there was no October 7th? None of this would have happened. Which fucking country was rocketing the shit? You know what? You're an anti-Semitic piece of shit is what you are. I'm not even Jewish and I'm calling you an anti-Semitic piece of shit. If they don't agree with Palestinian Authority, they can go back to Germany like it was before World War II. Wow, that's fucking racist, bigoted, anti-Semitic. That's just hate mongering. Guess what? I'm going to take this, I'm going to clip it just so I have it. And what I want you to recognize, this fucking level of stupid is exactly why Israel got tired of getting punched in the face over and over and over and over and over, getting rocketed daily, weekly, monthly. And Israel said, you know what, after October 7th, fuck it. You've been attacking us for 19 years. Fuck it. Because assholes like you simply do not want to learn. Your identity has become confused with your ideology. The world would be a better place if people like you just got deleted. Because you literally are incapable of being taught. You're incapable of learning. You're incapable of the light being shined on your ignorance and saying, fuck, I never thought about it that way. Shit, I keep saying they have a right to live in their homeland, but then so do the Jews. Holy fuck, that takes a level of fucking stupid that I can't even. Because I want to remind you, if you keep saying the Jews have a right to their homeland, the Jews have a right to their homeland, this is the land of Israel. This is Israel. Then I'll just keep posting back people like this. I'm going to get so much mileage out of this because I'm going to say, I think the Jews deserve to live in their homeland. And the last I checked, this was their last map. All of this should be Israel then. All of that should be Israel. And guess what? Now you've taken a moderate who supported the right of the Palestinian people, and I just got to give up. Because maybe if you're the best the Palestinian people can get, you said the Jews could live peaceably under the Palestinians. Their fucking whole mentality is the elimination of the people, not just the nation. You're a fucking anti-Semitic piece of shit, is what you are. Right? By the way, really important map to look at. Kingdom of Israel goes all the way the fuck up there. That's Judea. That's Israel. And then later on, all of that is one nation. Yeah. Solomon's kingdom, the divided kingdom, the Maccabees. Absolutely. So, abso-fucking-lutely. Assholes like this guy are the reason why we will never have peace on this planet. Because literally they don't think that their side can be wrong, their opinion can be wrong. All they can do is gish gallop irrelevant facts against the moderate who condemns what Israel is doing. I've literally said for 2 fucking years, if Israel can't conduct its war operations without wounding and killing 50,000 children, then I don't give a fuck what their military operations are. If you killed or wounded 50,000 children, your decision-making matrix sucks ass. I've literally said Israel doesn't have the right to fucking bomb Iran because Iran is a sovereign nation in the UN. The United States doesn't have the right to bomb Iran because they're a sovereign nation inside the UN. But you got assholes like this anti-Semitic piece of shit. But didn't you say you'd support kicking the Palestinians out? No, I didn't say that. What I said was, because this fucking clown said all this bullshit about Muslim Brotherhood and all this other nonsense, why doesn't Egypt or Saudi Arabia or Iran just give the Palestinian people the land they need? By the way, the Gaza, I'm sorry, I said 41. I said a number. It's 141 square miles. The entirety of the Gaza Strip is 141 square miles. The 3 biggest Muslim countries could just give them 141 square miles. All 3 of those countries have, the space. So that we all know what we're talking about, the Gaza Strip is the size of Detroit. So it's wrong for me to say there should be a pro-Palestinian government. You know that even people that... No. That's not what the fuck you said, you lying piece of shit. That's not what the fuck you said. See, around here, you're responsible for the words you say. That's not what you said, you lying piece of shit. You said, I think the Palestinians deserve in their homeland and the Jews can live in peace under Palestine. You didn't say that other shit. You said the Jews can live in peace under Palestine. You didn't say a pro-Palestinian government, you lying piece of shit. You said under Palestine. Got bad fucking news for you. Israel's already a nation. So assholes like you make the cause worse for the Palestinians. You literally are so fucking dumb. You make the cause worse. You understand that, right? You understand that your behavior by going into random places, you erode the moderate support for Palestine. So you get that, right? You get the bullshit that you say. You literally said the Jews should live under Palestine. Now, you said there's a significant number of Jewish people who support Palestinians or advocate for Palestinian rights. You're right. There are. You're right. But you also have to recognize a large number or a huge population. Well, why haven't they voted in pro-Palestinian people? Oh, could that be because every time Palestine gets a ceasefire, they rocket Israel? I'll tell you this, right? I'll tell you this as a young man whose home country was still in a terrorist war, I wouldn't have wanted to raise my kids in Ireland. Shit, not along the border. I was happy I was living in America. I don't want my fucking kids shot. You think fucking Jews want to live in Israel and hear the fucking air raid sirens go off every fucking day? Now, so you're clear on this. Most Jewish voters lean pro-Israel. No matter what I say, you just want to revert to ad hominem attacks. No, I did read what you said. And I do move down to ad hominem attacks because you are a fucking anti-Semitic, racist, bigoted piece of shit. And I hate hypocrites. And I hate people that then said something and then they said, I didn't say that. You said, and the Jews can live in peace under Palestine. And they're not ad hominem attacks. Thank you, Wolfagar. Ad hominem attacks is where I ignore your argument and I only call you an anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic, bigoted, racist piece of shit. If the only thing I do is call you a piece of shit, that's an ad hominem attack. I always take the time to go through your thing. You say, no matter what I say, please take the time to read what I say. I'm surprised you actually know the word please. I have read what you've said. And what you've said is a bunch of fucking racist, bigoted bullshit. There's not a huge population of people in Israel that are going to vote pro-Palestine. The majority of Israeli voters vote pro-Israel. Now, since you want to go into my real fucking wheelhouse, which is political science, giggity, why are the young voters in Israel voting to end the war in Palestine? Why is that? Because they want to live in solidarity and brotherhood with their Palestinian neighbors? No. Because for 2 fucking years, their economy has been impacted by a fucking war. That's why. They're upset with their prime minister because he's attacking everybody. And America could end up with a president like me. The first thing I would fucking say was, if I became president tomorrow, BB would be my first call. I'd be like, hey, BB, I'm the new president of the United States. I ain't selling you any bombs because I have a defensive pact with you and you're busy blowing up people in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Qatar. You don't get to just blow up my allies. So you ain't getting shit. By the way, in 96 hours, I'm landing 10,000 Marines in the Gaza Strip for humanitarian relief. I'm going to call the UN and tell them I'm doing it, but I'm doing it one way or another. And I swear to God, if one of my Marines dies to an IDF member, you won't be in charge of Israel anymore. And you can ask my community. I've said that on a number of occasions. I don't want to give Israel any more bombs because I think it's bullshit. However, don't distort my support for a person, 1.8 million individual persons, with a support for Hamas. And don't think that because I say the Palestinian people deserve something, that I'm saying they deserve this bullshit they want. They have had 7 legitimate opportunities to have a country. One, some people will say 8. One of those deals was other bullshit. Do you know what would happen if the leaders of Hamas would just surrender to the UN? Israel would be forced to go home. If the fucking people of Palestine would round up all the Hamas leadership and give them to Egypt, the rest of the world would say, okay, Israel, you got the number 1 through the number 27 guy. Now we're going to turn our attention. But let me ask you this question. Since you want to go into politics with me, why is it something like 162 countries recognize Palestine, but not a damn one of them have sent military to defend the Palestinian people? Oh, could that be what I said earlier? Yeah, it was a new IRA globalized. It wasn't the Sinn Féin. It wasn't the legitimate IRA. It was a new offshoot using the rebranding. It's the new Coke. It's the new Coke. What they did is they took the opportunity of Brexit to try to rekindle the IRA claim. The Republic of Ireland will never forgive England until England gets the fuck out of the 6 northern counties. The problem is the people living in the 6 northern counties don't see themselves as Irish anymore. If they don't agree with Palestine Authority, you could also rise up and flatten the entire region and seize it as Israeli land forever. Yeah, and that's what the fucking problem is. See, what we have here is we have a person who doesn't like how they're being spoken to because they're getting back an energy that they're propagating. You're a fucking racist, bigoted, anti-Semitic piece of shit. Because every one of your historical arguments has been destroyed. All of your modern arguments have been destroyed. And you never once fucking asked me to, what is your current view of Palestine? It would have been a good fucking thing to start in saying, hey, what do you think about Israel, what Israel's doing in Palestine? Because unfortunately, what people don't understand is this is my house. This chat channel is my house. This is my house. You don't get to walk into my house, whip your dick out, and piss in my potted plant and think I'm going to smile about it. No, I'm going to fucking hit you upside the head. I'm going to throw your ass dick hanging out at my front door. I can be completely polite and civil, but I can't be polite and civil to people with a double-digit IQ who decide to take that double-digit IQ and double down on anti-Semitic fucking propaganda and being a racist bigot. If Israel hated Muslims, the Islamic court wouldn't be valid in Israel, would it? Did you know there's no civil marriage? There's no civil marriage. There's religious marriage. There's no civil divorce. There's religious divorce. I don't think Israel as a nation hates Muslims. They almost had a treaty with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia says, look, we can't finalize the treaty because it has nothing to do with the fact that you're doing the actions against Muslims. It's just you're getting a little fucking crazy with what you're doing. Why don't you rein it in? And Israel's made the decision, no, motherfuckers, they came in and killed 1,200 people in our country. But you notice that nobody ever wants to bring that point up either. Where are you at, Tiana? Where's your justification for the 1,200 people who died? Which, funny enough, the dumb fucks out of Palestine killed barely any Israelis. They killed a bunch of foreign fucking fruit pickers. I think it should be a good comparison. I think Israel should keep their current land and leave the West Bank. Gaza after Hamas is destroyed, just like the UK should. Yes, exactly. I agree with you, Globalize. I agree with that agenda. Israel should be told by the United Nations, go the fuck back to the borders we gave you. Go the fuck back to the borders you had when you were admitted to the United Nations. Those are your fucking borders. Now, if you want to do a little swappy, you can't do a swappy with another country until they're legitimized. Stop getting in the way of this other country being a member of the UN. But then why would anybody want to, why would Palestine, let's say you make me the fucking king of the planet. Tomorrow I would give Palestine. I'd say you're Palestine now. I'd say to the West Bank, do you want to be do you want to be LinkedIn, or do you want to be like Palestine Light? Do you want to be North Palestine? Because we got a North and South Korea. Do you want to be North Palestine? What do you want? Do you want to be the West Bank? I'll give you the West Bank too. Just tell me what the fuck you want. But check this out, Palestine. We're gonna deal this shit Southside 100% Irish punk style. I'm gonna give you Palestine. But I swear to God, one fucking rocket comes out of your country, and I'm handing Israel a fucking declaration of war. Then I ain't gonna have to get a vote. Here you go. Do you think Hamas would agree to that? Do you believe I could, as the king of the fucking world, say, I recognize Palestine, I recognize these borders, and your sons and their sons will have claim to these borders. And some asshole in the crowd would say, from the river to the sea. And then I'd be like, fucking kill them all. Try to give you a fucking country, and you still want to chant river to the sea. This is the fucking problem with people like Tiana. I admit it's heartless and cruel position, but I don't care anymore. Yeah, I'm going to show what Nex said. Unfortunately, my puller doesn't pull from anywhere but Twitch, but I'm allowed to show chat. This is what Tiana has done. Not some fictitious, but this is literally what Tiana has done. I'll admit it's heartless and cruel, but I don't care anymore. Just let Israel take the entire region. No US or UN support or defense of either side. Just let them fight it out, and to the victors go the spoils. Good job there, Tiana. Because every time you act a fucking clown, you move moderates into either fuck them or I don't care. Good job, Tiana. I'm very happy that actually Tiana's probably Jewish. Oh, Tiana ran off. Tiana didn't like getting corrected by Wolfagar. I think occupying and demilitarizing Palestine for a few years to allow the democratic institutions to solidify would be a good idea. Yes, a West Germany type of deal. Yes. The United Nations could have sent in 250,000 peacekeepers and said, look, we're going to have free elections, but with limitations. We're going to have free elections. Number one, the people that you put forth cannot have any ties to Hamas. Can't have any ties to Hamas. Number two, we're going to help you set up a provincial government, not the United States, the United Nations. We're going to help you set up a provincial government. Yeah, their picture on their Twitch page is the Unabomber's manifesto. They're a piece of shit human being. They're a piece of shit human being. And you know how I knew that they were never going to say, they were never going to have anything useful to say, but they were a great talking point? Is because you're never going to be legitimate when that is your fucking avatar. When that is your avatar, you do not give a shit about the truth. You give a shit about your narrative. You give a shit about your narrative, and that is it. That is it. And this is what is wrong with the fucking planet. And here's why we have this problem. People forget that the line in Ender's Game. Let me see if I can pull it real quick. Yeah, that person has a quote, and it's the opening of Ted Kaczynski's manifesto. There is a wonderful line in the book Ender's Game. Ender, his name is Andrew, but his little sister can't say Andrew, so she calls him Ender. Ender wakes up. He's in command school at this point. He's been in battle school since he's been 5. He's like 13 at this point. And he wakes up and there's a strange old man sitting on the floor of his room. And the strange old man doesn't respond to him. He's just sitting there. And then the old man trips him. As Ender is pacing, Ender can't get around him because it's a really small room. Ender can't get around him. He's just pacing. And the old man reaches out, grabs Ender's ankle, and trips him. And Ender tries to talk to him, but he still ignores him. And then what happens is the old man reaches out, grabs him again, but beats the dog shit out of him and has him pinned. His arm is bent behind his back. His knee is on the back of his head. And Ender's like, I yield. And the really great line from the book is, since when does the enemy have to be told when they've won? And I use this quote. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Over on Kick, that's an automatic. That's an automatic one. I've got to get into my Kick and see if I can fix the auto mod settings. But I said this about Donald Trump last week. Donald Trump is declaring victory, and Iran is like, "What victory? Are you fighting 2 wars? Because you didn't beat us. You didn't beat us." Actually, next, the elections. The Palestinian election in 2006 was a legitimate election. Just so everybody understands this, it wasn't like a free election in like the Saddam Hussein sort of way. The elections in Palestine, although some people now 20 years later say they weren't really free, and yeah, you've got some, maybe they weren't totally free, but and let me put a little clarity on that. Maybe they weren't the most reprisal-free elections, but they were certainly more free than Iraq or North Korea. They were more free than China. We've got a problem now because the world is filled with a bunch of fucking shithead people. And we need to, wasn't Hamas still holding food and aid is blackmailing? Yes. Hamas, what Next just said down there is really important. As a terrorist organization, they were still doing that. But after they won the election, Hamas seemingly for a hot minute, they seemed like they wanted to get UN recognition. And then, of course, the things started coming through. And what kills me is, foreign countries were building medical treatment facilities in Palestine. We'll call it Palestine because, like I said, 162 odd countries call it that, but it can't be a country. Until the UN says so. But all Hamas had to do was stop their bullshit. But the problem is people like Tiana make it so nobody wants to stop their bullshit. It's just like this guy who burned down a $1.2 million factory or storage warehouse worth $200 million. Lots of people are celebrating him. He's a fucking idiot. All he did was hurt the people. You are correct, Zerg, as to why nobody wants to send military aid to Palestine, because nobody wants to oppose Israel, who's backed up by the United States. With that said, Donald Trump has just basically fucked that up for everybody. Donald Trump has fucked that up for the next 3 presidents. And here's why. Donald Trump is losing a war economically. And Donald Trump, yeah, Russia did kind of. Donald Trump is losing a war economically because you've gotten 13 Americans killed so far. I don't have an updated death list, but you've gotten 13 Americans killed. For what? And by the way, folks, I'm starting to get some word from some people. There were 300 people injured. The last number I had, I didn't have access to the Purse Temple slide or the Purse Temple briefing this week. 30, the last time I knew, 300 had been injured, 30 hadn't been returned to duty. But I thought all 200, the way I was given the number, I thought all 270 had minor injuries. No. Some of those people out of the 270, they had to be removed from theater. They're fucked up. People got burned. People got fucking blown apart. It's bad shit. Donald Trump is claiming that we hit 11,000 strategic targets. We now have 380 wounded. But for what? Donald Trump is destabilizing the whole fucking world. Donald Trump is running 1984 as a instruction manual. 1984 was supposed to be a warning, not an instruction manual. Give me 1 second. So, to put this in some relative terms, I still don't understand how out of the US some people say Trump is a genius. Okay. Let me see if I can find the video clip real quick. This is I'm gonna play a clip from a
It sounds funny to
from a wonderful
say.
movie called I'm gonna play a video clip from a wonderful movie called The American President. If you've never seen this movie, this is a great movie for understanding American politics. It's an amazing movie.
Almost entirely on your own. And she's terrific. So what does it say to you that in the past 7 weeks, 59% of this country has begun to question your family values?
The president doesn't answer to you, Louis.
Oh, yes, he does, AJ. I'm a citizen. This is my president. And in this country, it is not only permissible to question our leaders, it's our responsibility. But you already know that, don't you, Mr. President? Because you have a deeper love of this country than any man I've ever known. And I want to know what it says to you that in the past 7 weeks, 59% of Americans have begun to question your patriotism.
Look, if people want to listen to
They don't have a choice! Bob Rumson is the only one doing the talking. People want leadership, Mr. President. In the absence of genuine leadership, they'll listen to anyone who steps up to the microphone. They want leadership. They're so thirsty for it, they'll crawl through the desert toward a mirage, and when they discover there's no water, they'll drink the sand.
Louis, we have had presidents who were beloved, who couldn't find a coherent sentence with 2 hands and a flashlight. People don't drink the sand because they're thirsty. They drink the sand because they don't know the difference.
That's American politics. That's how Donald Trump and MAGA has come to power. That's how it's happened. We don't have statesmen anymore because it is impossible to be a statesman if you're not independently wealthy and you weren't groomed to be president. Because you need about $500 million in campaign financing to become president. Let's just do some numbers real quick. There's 340 million people in America, and we're going to take out 50 of them because they're documented immigrants with visas, H-1B visas, student visas, whatever. And we're going to take out another 12 million. Okay? So what we're going to do, I take 340, we're going to minus 50, we're going to minus 12. That's going to take us to 278 million people. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to divide this number by 2 because we want to get adults. So now we have 139 million adults, age eligible people. Now, we're going to take 139 and we're going to times it by 0.4. So we're going to call it 56 million Democrats, 56 million Republicans, right? And so we're going to do 139 minus 56 minus 56. You have 27 million independents. I know these aren't these aren't 100% accurate. We're doing a ballpark here. So there's 56 million people in a registered political party. And I need $500 million to run a political campaign. That means I need to double check my math. That means I need $8.92 in donations from every single person in my party to even have a chance. To run a presidential campaign. There's people living in debt. I told you I have three different families that I take care of, and I'm strapped for cash. I gave somebody nearly $2,000 to fix their problem, and then they tell me after 90 days on one of the loans, 60 days on the big one, they still owe their old. And I'm just gonna have to get into it with them, because I'm gonna be like, look, motherfucker, you holding on to two stacks of my cash means I can't help other people. I'm constantly loaning people money, getting it back, getting it back. The mom before I told you about with the piece of shit husband, she reached out to me. She's like, can I bum another $25? I'm like, no, you're already 25 over the hard line I set with you. You owe me 175. So I've got 175 out to one person, $2,000 out to another person. I have my own bills to take care of. I don't have the disposable income to be giving money to a political campaign. So how the fuck can I run a political campaign against somebody who can have fucking $10,000 a plate meals? Because in order for me to do that, I'd have to fucking bullshit you. I'd have to fucking lie to you. I'd have to say stupid shit like, oh, if you elect me president, I'll do X, Y, and Z. The only thing I could legitimately say is if you elect me president, I will veto any bill that comes to my desk that talks about raising taxes. I will veto any budget that comes to my desk. You functionally have a patrician class. We absolutely do. We have a bourgeoisie. Lying is part of the job. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we are. We literally are stuck is we have the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Yes, I'm using Marxist phrases. Marxism. We literally have a lower class of citizen. Yeah, the similarities between the late Roman Republic and the U.S. are distressing. If the U.S. doesn't have an enemy we can get into a war with about every 10 years, our country starts to fall apart. And if some of you have been around with me for a bunch of years, when I got out of the military and I started streaming, I said, now is a great time to get into the military because you're going to have about 10 years of peace. And then in 10 years, the pendulum's going to swing the other way. We're just getting out of Afghanistan now. We're going to have 10 years of peace, and then we don't know what the fuck to do with ourselves.
Despite the incredible wealth of our city, our poverty rate is double that of the national average, and it is getting worse year over year. And while today's true cost of living measure confirms that the affordability crisis touches every corner of our city, we know that these effects are not applied evenly. So often, it is black and brown New Yorkers who are hit the hardest. This preliminary racial equity
Black and brown New Yorkers. Why not just say poor New Yorkers?
Equity plan is the first step in developing a whole of government approach to tackling that reality. It is a plan that lays out these first steps to solve decades of neglect and discrimination, and it places the work of 45 city agencies within a singular framework.
That guy doesn't want to be mayor of New York. That guy doesn't want to be governor of New York. That guy wants to be president of the United States. That guy does not care about how fucking far into the shithole he drives New York City. Fact about New York City. Fact about New York City. The richest 1% pay 40% of the taxes. I can't believe you're supporting billionaires. I'm not. The richest 1% pay 40% of all taxes. So what's his fucking idea? We're going to tax them more. So as they leave, you're losing out of that 40% tax base. The U.S. is getting bored and the worst thing for the country. It's almost as if we were born from conflict and made it our entire identity. If we don't have foreign conflict, we turn to internal conflict. Right. We're fucking Sparta. Don't forget this. This also makes the city reliant on them. Yeah. This gives them way more power. Yeah. I'm writing a fictional story as a mental exercise. I'm starting to feel better. The meds are working. Treatment is working. I'm starting to feel better. If they leave, the cost of living decreases. No. If they leave... Okay. Let me just... I'll just break it down to you. You have $100 to buy your groceries for the week. Just kidding. Now you only have 60. If you lose 40% of your tax revenue, now you have to buy the same food for the same number of people, but you have $40 less to do it. Cost of living doesn't decrease when they leave. They just make New York City not their primary residence. They would probably still own the property, right? Because as I've said to people, if you have less than $13.99 million in assets, you shouldn't be worrying about setting up a trust. If you have less than $13.99 million in assets, you should be worried about getting up to $13.99 million. My kids have trust funds because I don't want them to get a bunch of money. Like, no offense, I love my daughters, I love all of them, but I don't want them to get their share of my money when I die. I want theirs to be set up. Like, my one daughter, she's never going to get a college degree. Okay, then your trust fund, because your trust fund falls down to your kids, because 2 of my grandkids are born. So if you don't go to college and you don't get the incentive pay for earning a bachelor's degree, then the trust fund, that money gets divvied out into however many kids you have. So without giving you the exact numbers, trust fund has $100,000 in it. But of that, $40,000 is you show up to the trust fund or provider, and you say, hey, here's my bachelor's degree and here are my transcripts. Okay, here's $40,000. But if you don't go to college, well, then that becomes 2 $20,000 bounties for my 2 granddaughters. If you have 4 kids, it'll become a $10,000 bounty. But the trust fund will grow. I think my oldest granddaughter with her is 4. So in 14 years, that'll grow. But that's different than locking everything up in a trust. New York needs to stop building luxury skyscrapers. There's one that is barely even habitable because the garbage chute does not break the fall of the trash. So the trash reaches terminal velocity by the time it hits the bottom, making it sound like a bomb went off. Well, yeah. The trusts are a good way to keep things out of probate, though, because wills have less and less legal standing every year. That is a great point, Nex. Let me teach you a workaround, because I just realized the time. I'm gonna grab this one because Nex brings up a really good point. So what Nex says is trusts are a good way to keep things out of probate. Yes, they are, but they're not the best way. So bunch of bank accounts, right? My oldest daughter's on this one, Melly Umpkin's on this one, Gizmo's on this one. You know, the other one is, they're on these. They're already on the account. As I get older, they're on the account. They're an authorized user. I just dump money into the account. When I die, because they're already on the account, that's right of survivorship. Doesn't have to clear through probate. Because at the moment of my death, they become the sole owner of that account. Now, is it a great idea? No. Is it the best idea? No. But I also remind people that if you're 75 years old and you're still alive, like my father doles out money every year because the old man is, I don't know, Scrooge McDuck. He's got a fucking vault full of gold coins. I don't even know how much that fucker's worth. I know what his property is worth, and I was like, holy fuck. And I was like, old man, you need to put one of the kids on. You need to put one of the kids on this right of survivorship. Like, let's do this shit. But we're all on different assets of my father's. When he dies, we get it that way. Again, because his total wealth is less than $14 million, the lifetime gift tax doesn't apply. Now, they are talking about reducing the lifetime gift tax, and when that happens, we'll have to reevaluate strategies. Yeah, they're on the account or beneficiary, then on the will. And then what you do is, you say, the total of my total holdings is this, less the amount that's already been joint ownership, leaving this. You are entitled to this. You haven't been forgotten because you've already gotten that. Last question before I go out to the farm. Gifting crypto to nonprofit, they are exempt taxes of the gains. Gifting anything to a nonprofit, they are exempt from the gains. But Quantum Traveler, a lot of dumbass people have caught themselves with that. You can't benefit from your nonprofit, so don't do that. You absolutely do not set up a nonprofit, because you put $1 million into your nonprofit and I find out you have it. I find out what your mission statement is. I submit a request for aid to your nonprofit. You could legally lose half of what's in the active holding, because to set up a nonprofit, you have to have a mission statement. I'm learning all about this now, so I can set up the Paradox charitable organization, just in case we ever grow and we make money. I did not know you can't pick who you dole money out to. You have to have an open process. I didn't know that. I learn new shit every day. Finally, the question about skyscrapers. Skyscrapers become less and less efficient as they become taller. They can only have so many elevators, but it depends on what definition of efficient and effective you're talking about. Is it better to build a 40-story building than a 4-story building? Yes, of course. However, where I lived in a 60-story apartment building, and I had to pay almost my rent for a parking space. It works if you have, and the other problem is, and then I got to get out of here. When you build a high-rise building, you're building a mega block from Mega City 1. You have 40,000 residents in this city block by city block high-rise. You have to have almost your own fucking police department in there. You have to have almost your own police department. Because think about it. For every, and you can look these stats up, for every X number of people in a town, you can expect to have this many murders, this many assaults, this many petty thefts, this many arsons, this many sexual assaults, this many rapes, this many. If you build a big ass fucking project like Cabrini Green or Robert Taylor Home, you have these 40-story high rises that are a fucking city block by a city block. You got 4,000 people living in there. That's a fucking small town. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow for some video games. And we'll talk about politics tomorrow anyway, because I'm not on a sponsored stream tomorrow. So come back tomorrow. By the way, as always, I'm going to thank all of you. Somebody did call me out. I stopped being polite at the end of the show, and I shouldn't have done that. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody who shares my content with people. I am trying to get a charitable organization started. The last big thing I was waiting on was this. Now I gotta wait 4 to 8 weeks, but I do have one album ordered, and now I gotta sit down and try to figure out what other albums I'm gonna get going. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. That is not the button I needed.
I wonder if the organic meat sack that runs this channel knows a lot of these sponsors don't sponsor us anymore.
They were longtime sponsors. The credits are fine.
Do we get paid? Is any of this sponsorship money for Gail, Daisy, the Chaos